Hey everyone and welcome to another video, and today we are doing a LeBlanc guide. Now, a lot of people have been asking Curtis, can you please do a LeBlanc guide? These take a lot of work and they do take a long time. So finally, we've mustered up the energy and the time to put together this LeBlanc guide. We're actually doing it very differently this time. Rather than doing it all by myself, I wanted to actually get an expert in to help you. So a few little things here. Tim, or Mysterious, as you can see on the left-hand side, he's actually a long-term member of the Midland Academy. He's also a high elo player. He's going to introduce himself in a second. But essentially, he is a very, very good LeBlanc player. And I thought, why not? Why not do it with Tim? He knows more about LeBlanc than anyone else I know. He's extremely knowledgeable about LeBlanc. So he's going to actually go through this guide with me. We're going to go through everything that I usually do in guides. And so make sure you give him a break, guys. This is his first guide. He's going to be a little bit nervous, understandably. So feel free to introduce yourself, Tim.
All right, what's up, guys? Of course, it's my first first guide, piece of cake. It's gonna be great. And I'll introduce myself real quick. My name's Tim. I'm from the Netherlands. I'm 23 years old, and I love League, of course. I used to be rank 1 LeBlanc World. It was end of last season. Got a lot of games into her, great win rate, and I really clicked with her, everything about a kit. And I'm gonna teach you guys LeBlanc today. So
And this, by the way, just to reference it, you were GM, so this was crazy. So
yeah,
these games weren't played on a Smurf. This was in
no,
Grandmaster in EU,
yeah, exactly.
right?
This was
So
all
you
my main
got a
account.
68% win rate in
Yeah,
EU West in Grandmaster. So Tim here, over a lot of games played. So this guy knows what he's talking about. So this is what this is who I've got working with me today for this one.
yeah, and I love to do this. So before we go into table of contents, first I want to clarify who's this guide for. This guide is for everyone. It's for beginners, intermediate LeBlanc players, but also advanced LeBlanc players. Pretty sure if you're super advanced on her, you're still gonna find some stuff and be like, "Holy shit, I didn't know about this!" And yeah, just chime along. So to start with the table of contents, here you can see everything that we're going to discuss today. We're going to put timestamps in the comments, and you can just click to wherever you want to go or wherever you feel like you need to go. So first of all, why LeBlanc? First of all, she's very good in solo queue and in the current meta. In pro play, she's picked a lot. Solo queue, she's very good. Super snowbally champion, super mobile, and um, she also doesn't have too many bad matchups, and it's very good to minimize on her. She's an amazing carry and also amazing secondary carry. Super good at setting up win conditions and snowballing games. Also, she's very flexible. You can play her in different kind of styles, different kind of identities, which we're going to discuss. And she's also generally good against melee champions. Moreover, she's not hard to pick up, and she's one of the most fun champions in the game due to her flexibility and the amount of variables that come into playing LeBlanc. All right, LeBlanc's identity. So as I said, LeBlanc is very flexible, and she can play both of these styles with both builds. So starting with my favorite style, and this is the build and style that I opt in for at least 80, maybe even 90% of the game. And that's the assassin slash poke style LeBlanc with the Luna's Echo. Um, your goal with this style is to create, get picks, create man advantages, set up a win condition, maybe even carry yourself and win the game through that. On the other side, we got a more of a facilitator LeBlanc style, which is the Everfrost build usually. UCC very well with the Everfrost. You're also very good at creating space, and you can disrupt a lot of champions in the
And
game.
this actually reminds me a lot of Vex, right? It's very, very
Yeah.
similar to Vex. Vex has the like electrocute, ignite, Luden's one shot, and then you
Hmm.
kind of have the Everfrost peel. You're creating space for your team. You're more of like a less of like a burst mage and more of like a facilitator.
Yep.
In a way, and both are viable. And just to preface, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Tim. If you are new to LeBlanc, it's probably best you all in on one of these styles until like because they do play quite differently in the
Hmm.
way they play skirmishes. So you're probably better off just all inning on one of them. And then
Yep.
later on, when you get a lot more LeBlanc mastery, you can then begin to alternate between the two of them, right? Because at the start, you're just going
For
to get
sure.
overwhelmed otherwise.
For sure.
Um,
And I definitely recommend to start with the Ludens
yeah,
Luden style.
100%.
It's way more
I
about
think it's easier to
really
execute as well.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's way easier. All right, moving on to the runes. So as LeBlanc, there's generally the domination keystone that you want to take as your primary rune page. This includes Electrocute, Taste of Blood, Eyeball Collection, and Ultimate Hunter. These days you can also run Treasure Hunter. It's what you prefer. Both runes do different things, and both do it just as good on LeBlanc. Then there's a lot of options for the secondary rune page. Like you can take every tree, and it's very matchup dependent, and it's also very dependent on what your aim, what your goal is in the game. So yeah,
So walk us through what makes you decide between the two. So in the stock standard, I would assume, is the Biscuits Time Warp, which probably even went down and maybe a little bit in priority since the Time Warp nerfs, I'm assuming.
Yep. So I take these runes into control matchup. You need the move speed, you need the early biscuits. That's where you take these runes. If you want to go a bit more scaling, you go for the sorcery option with mana flow transcendence. Okay. And if there's a lot of CC on the enemy team and there's maybe some burstier trading patterns, then the resolve tree can really help.
So like into TF and Lysandra, would you go resolve secondary or not?
Yep. Into TF Lysandra, I would go resolve secondary. Instead of resolve, also precision is a good possibility because you still need the tenacity in those kind of matchups, but instead of the bone plating that you get from the resolve tree, you go for Presence of Mind for a bit more mana.
Right. So you alternate between resolve or precision if you need the tenacity. If you need it from unflinching or legend tenacity.
Yep.
And then how would you? So in your mind, how would you determine between the both of them? Like, what would you go secondary? What would the other one be in precision tree? Like coup de grace or?
No, it's Presence of Mind.
Oh, Presence of Mind. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. If you need the mana, then you go the precision tree.
Ah, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah,
got you. And then when would you go first strike?
So first strike, you go into matchups where you really can scale easier because you get the boots for free. You also generate gold with first strike, and it also works really well with what LeBlanc wants to do in her kit. She wants to attack first, and you get a lot of gold if you generate it well. So it's a bit more scaling setup. If you want, you can do this into tankier matchups that counter you on mid lane, or you can play it into a Kassadin. It's whatever you feel like. It's a nice option to definitely try out.
So is that into like things like set mid, like we're talking like the hardcore non-interactive melee mids?
Yeah, exactly. Set. I play this against Cyan mid. There's people picking that into me. Yeah.
What would you do into Silas? Would you go electrocute into Silas so you can like
punish? 100% electrocute. Yeah, lane's too important in that matchup.
Nice.
All right, so moving on to the build. So same as how many variables LeBlanc's runes has, her build is also super variables, super flexible. Starting off with the most regular build, which is starting with Corrupting Potion into the holy trinity of mid lane at the moment, D-Ring and Dark Seal. Of course, you want to combine that with the early boots. LeBlanc's pretty strong at these items, and especially with the Dark Seal, you want to stack it up as soon as possible.
And I think we should preface here, Tim, that the Holy Trinity, right? The Tier 1 boots, the Dark Seal, and the Doran's Ring. That's a very recent thing, isn't it? Like, in the past, a lot of people didn't really go both Doran's and Dark Seal. And just to preface, I think that this is a very high-elo thing, isn't it? Where some high-elo players realize the importance of like early lane and Doran's. So, look, would you say that for the average player, it's important they go both of these, or would you say this is more of like a D plus thing, or do you think there's no harm either way in going that?
For sure, you need the Dark Seal always on LeBlanc.
Right, Dark Seal always.
It's just key of your build, and I think the Doran's Ring is super good. It also synergizes very well with her auto attacks and her soft power that you kind of wanna get. And I think for every level of play, the Doran's Ring is super valuable.
And do you ever go Tier 2 boots before Lost Chapter?
Yes, I do. It's super specific, and I only do it when I don't really need to wave clear, but I rather want to kill the enemy.
Right. So if you're versing a low wave clear champion, in which you have a lot of threat, or you're snowballing and you don't
Hmm.
need the wave clear, and you just can keep
Yeah,
killing them over and over again,
yeah,
essentially,
and
right?
yeah, and if you got some stacks on the dark steel, you can also go opt in for the earlier sorks. Um,
Right. Okay.
yeah.
But if you're versing a high wave clear laner, you
Hmm.
definitely want that lost chapter first. So you can kind of match the wave clear, I'm
Yeah,
assuming.
I really prefer that.
Okay. So
Exactly.
into an Ari and things like that, would you go lost chapter, or would you still go? Would you rush mercs or something?
Um,
I know
Ari
that's
is,
very
is
specific.
yeah, Ari is too specific
Right.
to
Okay.
just throw
Okay.
around this.
Yeah.
Usually though, I get at least some AP before I get my sorks.
Okay.
Yeah, but if it like really comes out well with the gold I have, I might get a sorks.
Okay. Okay. And
It's
so
very
I think the
specific.
theme here is that you got to feel out what works for you. Like this
Yeah,
is a good framework. Like you
oh
try
definitely.
Lost Chapter Rush, try Tier Two Boot Rush, and then just keep into account. I think the main variables to keep into account would be the amount of wave clear, how much threat you have on the enemy, how much value you're going to get from like a mercs, right? So
Yep,
it's a few things to keep in mind.
yep, exactly. And that also dictates your boots choice. Usually I go Sorks. I think it's really good on Blanc, really synergizes with your assassin identity. Sorks usually is combined with the Ludens. Whenever I opt in for a more facilitator kind of identity, for example, against Alessandra, I need these mercs and I get way more value for the Everfrost in comparison to the Ludens.
And
And
the Everfrost would actually complement the the mercs, right? Because HP
yeah,
with resistances, and that actually probably makes sense why you'd
yeah,
be really good into Lissandra because you can't get one shot. Because a lot of
yep,
listers will probably just go Electro Ignite into you and try and one shot you.
yep,
But you're just going to go mercs, you're going to go Everfrost, you're going to be tanky, you're going to have the tenacity, you're going to have the MR. It seems
yeah,
like a really solid. I mean, it makes sense.
yeah, exactly. And once you got your mythic, there's a lot of options going on. I think the best option at the moment for the assassin style is Ludens into Zonias. It keeps you very safe. You don't die a lot. It's cheap, and you really spike if you are high enough level, and you can still one shot everyone. After that, you go for a Void Staff or Rabadons. Rather, if you go for the mercs into Everfrost, you want a bit more damage. Maybe Shadow Flame also gives you some more HP, with also synergizes with the magic resist into a Rabadons or a Void Staff usually. Then there's a lot of niche stuff that you can go onto the rank. For example, Curl or Longsword into refillable. That's some stuff that I really like into matchups like Kassadin, Galio, and um, make your auto attacks do a bit more damage and do damage on a different way.
Well, this is also what people don't understand. Is like the item you start also changes the way your ability force works, right?
The adaptive force, yeah, exactly.
Adaptive force, sorry, not
Yeah,
ability force. Adaptive
yeah,
force. So like if you start longsword, you're adaptive. Is it adaptive force? Because I know who the hell
yeah.
calls it adaptive
I don't know.
force. um, it turns it into AD, right? So your auto
Yeah,
attacks are going to be a lot of damage. That's
exactly.
something to keep in mind as well.
Yep.
And walk us through the TP and ignite.
So the TPA and Ignite both are super nice summoner spells for LeBlanc. So this is of course combined with Flash. It's either one of them. Usually against control mages or mages where I really need, or champions where I really need to be efficient, and it's hard to really punish in the 1v1. I tend to go for teleport, and this allows me to have better CS numbers in comparison to when I go ignite, where I'm really looking to kill the enemy opponent and snowball the game through these kills.
So
Yep.
give us some examples here. So what are some matchups that you 110% want to take TP, and what are some matchups that you 110% want to take ignite, no matter the jungle matchup?
Okay, so I think stock standard mages like Victor, Azir, I really like TP in those kind of matchups. Also, champions that you just have no shot of killing yourself, like Cyan or any other niche mids like Set. Super hard to kill them. You just go teleport. On the other hand, if you go against a Sylas, a Kiana, super scrappy, super early game focused, with a lot where you have a lot of kill threat onto them, go ignite for that extra punch, and
And
yeah,
they don't have as much lane control, so you don't need the
no, no,
TP to
no,
get. You're gonna get a good quality reset anyway because you have lane control over them, right?
yeah, exactly.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
So for the final note on this page, the Magi's. So when you look at Magi's, you think of the ideal item for LeBlanc. Super slippery, very hard to kill, so the stacks really stay. And yes, Magi's is super good on LeBlanc, although I personally don't like it that much. The reason why that is because whenever you're ahead on LeBlanc and whenever you're already popping off, you don't need the Magi's to really win you the game. But if you get the Magi's and you manage to fuck up and you die on it, you really get punished by it, and you have a way harder, way easier time of throwing the game
It's
in
like a lose
comparison when just
condition.
having. What did you say?
It's like a lose condition in a
Yeah,
way.
yeah,
When you
exactly.
don't need the additional win con in a way, you already are win con if you're ahead.
Yeah,
So you don't need it. It's kind of overkill, is what you're saying.
yeah,
Most of the time.
it's kind of overkill.
Okay.
But if you can find angles where it's super hard to kill you, it's pretty much impossible to kill you, definitely go for it. It's still a super good item. There's 3 ways of playing LeBlanc in the early game. And I'm just going to show you examples, and then we're going to look into it. Starting off, the three ways that you can play the waves with LeBlanc are, in this example, we can see Showmaker pulling us through a beautiful tree stack. And the benefits of this tree stack is that you have control on the lane, the early tree waves, and that you can use this to create a lot of pressure onto the enemy opponent or get some good quality vision or priority.
This is a bit of a unique one because usually when you do a 3-stack, you're definitively getting level 2 first. But in this case, you actually didn't get level 2 first, which was interesting.
Yeah.
But I would say most of the time when you're doing a 3-stack, you're just going to be getting this slight minion advantage, making sure you're basically just last hitting. And the advice I always give people when 3-stacking, don't get too caught up in like, oh my god, it's a 3-stack or a crash on the 3rd or the 4th. Like, sure. But just make sure that you're last hitting, you're getting as big as a wave as possible. And this, I mean, obviously maximizes your ability to poke under tower. You said before to me off camera, like if you're doing a 3-stack like this and you manage to heavy trade levels 1 and 2, you can also tempo reset off the 3-stack as well. It just gives you a lot of options, right?
Yep.
So
Exactly.
so yeah, I think that this is only possible though in very favorable matchups, right? This is like matchups that have weak level 1s and
Yep.
have very low wave clear. So we're talking, you could probably do it into an Akali, I'm assuming, Silas, Fizz, Kiana. A lot of these low range melee matchups you can 3-stack.
Yeah, exactly. Like these are champions that just cannot contest the wave against you and that you got full priority over.
And people always ask, like, when should I 3-stack? If you can 3-stack, you should always 3-stack, right? Like, that's kind of like the rule. Like, if you can't 3-stack, then, like, I mean, you're just not going to do it, right? It's like, if you can 3-stack, you always want to 3-stack, usually, right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think most of the time, if you want the most optimal result, yes. Of course, it's sometimes a bit hard to replicate, and therefore you got to find what works for you. We're going to move on to the second example, which is going to be a 2-stack. And in this situation, I chose to go for a 2-stack because I value the early vision that I can create with the 2-stack. This also allows me to get some poke off on the tower, but this is of
It
course
also gets
less
the
than
wave
with
back
the
on your side earlier, doesn't it? Like,
Yep,
that's
exactly.
one of the other benefits. Because 3-stack, it delays the bounce. Whereas a 2-stack, you get the wave back onto your side. So if you have, like, a gank or into jungle like you do here with a Nunu,
Yep.
it actually is just made way faster. And notice, you can already notice straight away here, the difference between this one and the last one is that you've ordered the wave way more than Showmaker did in that one.
Yep, exactly. Yep, that's the massive difference. And of course, as you can see, Akali gets a bit of an easier time in the tower right here. But the wave, of course, gets faster onto my side.
Right. And you get a better quality ward as well, right?
Showmaker at the same ward. But this is, in general, the ward that you want to go for. It's so
But
powerful.
timing-wise, it's a little bit better, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
Because
slightly
you
better.
actually get to see them on the camp. In Showmaker's case, like the ward wasn't time, like they would have already done the camps, if that makes sense, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
And walk us through this one, the poke under tower. You're probably going to talk about this in other slides, but just like to really baseline introduce it. Talk us about the timing here with the QW.
So what you can do with the QW on LeBlanc is if you time it correctly with the turret shot, you can W under tower and W back without taking a turret shot. So this is what we're going to see right here. So a Q onto Akali, back off for a little, and you can
time perfectly with the tower hit.
Yeah, exactly. And that's also a strength of the 2 and the 3 stack, because it's super hard for an enemy to respond to that kind of poke under tower. the last way of playing the waves as LeBlanc is keeping it in the middle. And what I really like to do is to mirror auto attacks. This means that the wave doesn't get too big and crashes under your tower, but this does mean that you have good opportunities to trade and that it's always possible for your jungler to come assist you.
So this is generally what you would do into a lot of mages, right? Where you don't
Yeah,
have as much lane control, they can kind of match your shove, and then it just stays in the middle. And this
yeah,
is completely fine, right? You get kind of free farm. It gives you flexibility to look for level 2 trades. Also creates, I mean, means you can W aggressively, quite safety, and also creates gank threat, right?
yeah, exactly. And also the benefit of this, especially when taking Ignite, is you're not pushing the lane, but it's also not too big that you can't trade with them. So whenever you see the opportunity at level 3, especially with Ignite, you can just go onto them and probably kill them. And that's not possible if the wave is too far on their side or too far on our side. And this,
And I love neutral state. I think neutral state is one of the most underrated wave states on any champ, but specifically LeBlanc. I think it's
mhm.
really nice.
Yeah, it's great.
It also allows you to focus on your CS. Lovely.
And that's
Walk
the
us through that.
example.
Walk us through that solo kill, by the way.
All right. So what we can see right here is Ari doesn't respect my level 3, and she doesn't understand that I can kill her from this range. She has C-pots up, and she almost has her passive back up. So she's like, all right, I'm gonna wait till I get some healing. And especially with Ignite, people don't expect it. Just flash on everyone and flash W, and you kill them. Usually, it's crazy what the ranges are. So that sums up the early waves. Moving on to the trading in the early lane. So these are different ways that you can use your trading in the early lane. You can use this as a cheat sheet. We're gonna get into examples and it will be a bit more clear. First of all, main basic combo as LeBlanc, auto attack, W, auto attack. To get the electrocute proc, usually when you trade as a LeBlanc, you want to trade around your electrocute and your W cooldown. You can also start with Q or with E in some matchups and do the same, but then you do it from a bit further range. So the second combo that's standard on LeBlanc is the QW auto attack combo, also with electrocute. Right here you can see it under tower again, and it's very effective, a lot of damage, and proxy electrocute. So another way of trading with LeBlanc is starting out with E. And this means fishing for E's into a combo afterwards. And when you hit your E, you're basically guaranteed to win the trade because your E does so much damage when you hit both parts.
Can you go back? Because that's actually something that I've noticed a lot of people don't fish for enough. And I don't want to go too deep on this, but I think people tunnel in on like, I have to get my QW or I have to go in a W first. But if they disrespect, right? Or maybe you've created a pattern in the lane where you've W'd in a few times. They're not expecting that you can actually start the trade with E. You can catch them off
Yeah,
guard. Like I'm assuming here, this Jace is probably thinking, "Oh, LeBlanc's
easy
never
level
gonna
up.
W it,
Yeah,
but you just fish for E, and then allows you to like go back, and then Jace can't trade back onto you. So that was really
yeah,
really nice. And I think that's something that people should maybe look for in their own
yeah,
pods.
definitely, definitely. Just try to fish for E sometimes. If you hit it, it's gonna be a massive increase in your trade potential. All right. So another very important thing for LeBlanc trading is that you can use the minions on the backline. You can make them lower and kill them with your W and trade off with your other abilities. People usually have a rough time respecting the fact that your minions can get very low.
I think
They're,
that's
they're,
something I've died to many times. Like I'm
yeah,
like, oh great, I got minions in front of me, I could walk up, and
yeah,
then they order the back line, they one shot them with the W, and that leaves
yeah,
me completely exposed. I get hit by the E, Q, whatever, and then I'm just done.
yeah, exactly. And as you can see, it's super hard to trade back once you get hit with the E. So there's two things that I want to mention here before we move on. First of all, you really want to throw in auto attacks with your trades. Your auto attacks do a lot of damage, and you can really combine them with your abilities and between your abilities, and this makes a decent trade go instead of a decent trade, it will be a good trade for you. And one more thing that's super important with LeBlanc in lane is that trading flashes is super worth. You got infinite mobility on your W, you got great gang setup, so just trading flashes is good for you. That's what you want to aim for.
Especially in mobile mages. If you're versing like Victor,
100%.
Oriana,
Yeah,
Syndra, trading flash is amazing.
yeah,
Really, really, really
exactly.
good.
So moving on to kill ways of killing with LeBlanc on the early lane. Um, the main thing with killing LeBlanc in the early lane is to catch your opponent off guard. Usually you want to get them into kill range, and what you're going to do is you're going to kill them with Ignite by flashing onto them, flash E-ing, or any other way. So in this example, Akali disrespects my kill range. I flash E, it's super hard to dodge, and she just dies.
This is okay. There's actually a few things I really want to highlight here that make this possible. Go back and look at how many auto attacks you put in onto this Akali here. Go back to like when she's like trying to clear the wave and push you in under tower here. Back. Yeah, around here. Look how many autos. So we auto once. Auto. 3 autos. 4 autos. 4 autos into a flash E. And then boom.
Yeah.
And then it makes a difference. If you didn't do 4 autos, she's not in kill threat range, right? Even the Ignite actually doesn't kill her.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's kind of reiterating what you mentioned before with the auto attacks, the importance of auto attacks.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's some more important things, because you want to understand when you want to solo kill on LeBlanc in the lane. What we can see in this example, especially right now, is that the wave is on our side. And if the wave is not on our side, especially when we take Ignite instead of Teleport, you generally don't really want to go for a solo kill, because it's super hard to shove out the wave. And whenever your wave is not in a good spot after you killed someone, you're just going to lose just as much as you gained by the solo kill. So definitely pull the trigger at the right time.
So you're saying that, like, for example, if like you're deep on in this situation, maybe you're deep on Akali's side, you heavy trade, and you get really low, like this low, but then the wave is stuck on Akali's side because you're not taking TP, you're taking Ignite for the solo kill.
Yeah.
Even if you get the solo kill, it's probably not even going to be worth it, because then the wave's stuck, you have really bad wavely, you can't get it out, the enemy jungle's going to come by, then you're screwed anyway. So you're waiting until you bounce the wave back out onto your side before going for these solo kills most of the time, is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. And that's also why the 2/3 stacks into bounce really synergize well with LeBlanc.
Okay.
Yep. So moving on, there's here as well another example of E-Flash. It's super hard to react to the E-Flash.
Let's watch that a few times. So E-Flash is a common, it seems like a common kill combo that you use.
It's super hard to respect the E-Flash. It's too fast, and most people don't respect the threat that they're under as well.
And then the great thing about E-Flash is that you can also follow with W. So if they flash away to try and get out of the E2 damage, you W, and then you're on top of them, and then they can't get out of it anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So if you hit the E and W afterwards, what they're gonna do. That's the nice thing. So here we see the clip of the flash W again. As I said, once you're level 3 and people are in kill range, just flash onto them. They're not gonna respect it, and you'll just get yourself a nice solo kill.
And what's interesting is I remember I asked you, I'm like, how often do you get a solo kill with LeBlanc in the early lane? And you said with Ignite, like 70. You said some really high number. I think it was like 75% of the time.
Yeah.
And I think the difference between you and other LeBlanc players is that you're not afraid to use your flash aggressively, and you're so good at landing your E that those two things combined generate kill threat way more than the average LeBlanc player. So I think they're true skills in itself. Number one, developing the confidence to actively use your flash aggressively and understand the importance of trading flash for flash. Because, like you said before, flash isn't really that important on LeBlanc because you have so much mobility. But more importantly, number two, you've got a lot of confidence and the skill to actually land your E, which we're going to get into later. It's very, very important that you know how to land your E. But E accuracy is one of the most important things in generating kill threat. Like, everything is predicated on it. Like, everything, right? So, I think there's just two little important distinctions to make there.
Yeah, exactly. And one more thing to add in, like, for example, what if someone does react to your flash E, right? Are you screwed? Not at all, because at that moment you just trade your flashes, so you're still in a good spot. So hence is why flashing is just good for you. All right. So one more thing is whenever you play LeBlanc, you you're not playing a 1v1. Hence is why the early waves are generally um, played so that it bounces to your side, so that your jungler can respond to you. So how do you kill your lane opponent the easiest way? With LeBlanc, with your setup, of course, call the enemy jungler. What I do is at the start of the game, whatever matchup I'm in, I just type mid free, and the junglers will react, and they will play around it in a way.
And to go a little bit deeper, go back here.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you're playing versus Rise, and I'm assuming you did maybe a 2-stack into the Rise or something like that, right? The important thing to note here is that like you need to ping way earlier. Like when you're doing a 2-stack, as soon as that wave is bouncing out off the third wave is bouncing out of the tower, you should already be pinging that the wave is bouncing back onto your side or whatever it is. You know, you need to give your jungler plenty of warning. So if you're playing LeBlanc, because remember, LeBlanc is never just played for the 1v1. You're a 2v2 champion. You're a mid jungle god. That's what your champion is, right? And that's also why later on, tier lists basically don't mean much on LeBlanc because you're so heavily influenced by the jungler that you're paired with. There's a very big difference between LeBlanc paired with a Lee versus LeBlanc paired with like a Shyvana. I mean, it's literally a different champion.
Yeah.
So that's two parts. So understanding the amount of gank threat your jungler actually has on the opponent, but also more importantly, communicating way in advance what's actually happening with the wave state so you can actually get your jungler to come mid. And sorry to go on this, but I think this is so important. There's a very big difference because a lot of people feel guilty, like, oh, I don't want to waste my jungler's time or whatever. No, as long as the wave is going to be in a good position, you're not wasting the jungler's time. And he can choose to say no. The jungler can choose to say no, right? But at least you're creating the option. It's only bad to ping your jungler if the wave is not in a good position. Like, say the wave's stuck on Ryze's side, and then you're like, oh, come kill mid. Well, how? How are we going to kill the Ryze? He's stuck on his side, you know? That's an example of a bad ping. Something to keep in mind.
All right, moving on to this LeBlanc special ops mindset. So, LeBlanc is a very unique champion, and this also includes a very fun and unique mindset. So you can see all the examples on this sheet if you want to go back to it, but we're just going to go into example and I'm going to explain during the example. The special op mindset, what does this mean? So you are an assassin and you're out of vision, you strike out of vision, you strike from fog of war, you hide in places and pull the trigger at the right time. So this also means just waiting for whenever you can strike. And this example is this game has a lot of good examples of what does this special mindset really mean. Right here, we can already see wrap us up. We sit in the bush. We wait for the enemies to come by. In this case, usually it's a squishy opponent, so we wait in the bush and we try the fish for a pick because that really fits with LeBlanc's playstyle.
And so correct me if I'm wrong. So basically, the special mindset is the importance of you got to be utilizing fog of war, making sure you're putting yourself in unique positions to make picks. And this is more of like a mid game thing, right? When you're mid game, you got a little bit of damage. You can kill people. So rather than just mindlessly showing on every single wave and say, hey, everyone, here I am. Be careful of me. It's like, okay, you're actively trying to utilize the fog of war, utilize your terrain scaling. I mean, that's probably the one big benefit of LeBlanc. You have the terrain scaling to do unique things and get yourself in position. Reminds me of like PUBG when you got the ghillie suit. You're like in the prone position in some like random bush and then the circles close in and then they come to you and you like kill them. It's like that, right?
Yeah, it's very similar. Indeed. Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's more things that come into play with this mindset because as Curtis already said, you gotta be somewhat strong. You gotta have some items. How do I define this? You gotta be healthy. This means you're either up or equal in XP, and you're either up or equal in items. And whenever that's the case, you're healthy and you're able to really utilize this way of playing.
Right, because if you don't have a lot of damage or you're really, really low, then who gives a shit if you're there in a
Yeah,
bush and then you surprise someone? They're just gonna either kill you or ignore your damage because you're not even strong, right? So
yeah,
you got to make
exactly.
sure that this is more of a mindset when you're ahead, I'm assuming,
Yeah.
or
Also when
when you're in a
you're
decent
even.
position, or
Yeah,
even just not behind. When you're behind, you're probably just peeling, right, and playing some form of
yeah.
front to back or something
You
like that.
you can do the same mindset, but it's a bit of a different way. I'll touch into
Right.
that a bit later. So in this example is right here, we shove the wave, we instantly move out of vision, and whenever we see the enemy shows, we just try to create a pick.
And sweeper, I'm assuming, is a big thing
Yeah,
for helping the special ops mindset,
yeah,
right?
it's
Yeah.
it's it's very very helpful indeed.
Yeah.
So we get the first pick. This means it's already a 4v5. Enemies are at the moment struggle really to make a play or make something happen right now, even get control. Um, so we stay healthy. We grab the wave. Also, we have the regeneration of the red buff that really helps us. And after this, we we try to stay healthy. We push the towers. We stay in the side lane. We fast forward a bit, and instead of basing right here, we just take it slow because we're the special mindset. We're very good at getting picks, and this is also what we do.
I mean, and it kind of helps that you have all this mobility, right? Like,
Yeah,
it wouldn't really, if you didn't have mobility in the special mindset, it wouldn't really make much sense. You need the ability to both escape and make the aggressive play.
yeah,
Because then
exactly.
you're just a suicide bomber otherwise. Then it wouldn't
Yeah,
make sense.
else you need
Yeah.
a suicide bomb. For example,
Yeah.
the difference between a Cassiopeia and a LeBlanc is
Mm.
LeBlanc can get out of these situations while Cassiopeia is stuck between the walls.
Right, you've got to fight your way out of it. It's like everyone's got to
Yeah,
come to me and I just got to stand my ground and do what I can. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So what happens if you're not healthy and you are behind? So in this case, the mindset is the same, but instead of doing it solo, you want to do it with teammates because remember, LeBlanc has a lot of mobility, a lot of gank setup, a lot of setup for the team in general. So you want to utilize this setup and aim to get healthy, to get even or ahead due to helping your teammates. And this will also be a good example of in one of the later slides. Moving on, how to use LeBlanc's W and E. There's a lot of ways how you can use these abilities. First of all, you max your W as LeBlanc first. It's your main ability. It gives you a lot of options, a lot of opportunities, and it's usually used as a gap closer or as an escape tool. Seen the fact that it is your mobility. So it also can be used for other options, which we're going to discuss. In this example, we can see it's our gap closer, it's our mobility,
It's like
and we get a good
non-committal
trade.
poke. It allows you to do a non-committal poke. Go in,
Yeah,
W, use it as a gap closer, and gives you an escape option.
yeah, exactly. You just go in and out, and it's super hard to respond. So another thing that you can do with your W, one thing that we've already discussed, is you can kill enemy minions with your W and trade onto the enemy opponent. Also, whenever they try to trade back, we can just dodge it and get ourselves a good quality trade-off.
So it's very important to note like the low minions around you, right? So if you're going for a trade, you need to
Mm-hmm.
actually keep in mind if the casters of the minions are low,
Mm-hmm.
they have perceived fake safety. They feel like they're safe, but they're not. Boom, that leaves them exposed to E. Take the short trade back off. And I'm assuming we kind of maybe should have touched on this maybe a little bit earlier,
Mm-hmm.
but you might talk about this later. But notice how here you do the W into EQ, not WQE. I think
Mm-hmm.
this. I'm assuming you're probably going to cover this in the E slide, but
Yep.
it's very important you do WE, not WQE, because otherwise, I mean, there's no point. You want
Yep.
to, number one, if you WE, it's higher likelihood that you're going to land the E and they don't flash away from it or whatever like that. And also, you're staying, you're able to get out of combat soon because you're going to proc the sigil afterwards anyway with the E2. So,
Yep.
yeah,
And
that's
your
a
R is
common
fucked.
mistake. And you're what, sorry?
And your R is fucked because then
Yeah.
you got the
Yeah,
RE instead
exactly.
of the
Then you have
RE.
the RE. Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So it's less burst.
Less burst, yeah.
Yep.
Gives you more flexibility with that trading pattern. And that's actually a common mistake I've seen when I've done like LeBlanc coaching sessions. People tunnel in on that. Oh my god, I got to go in, press W, then press Q, then press E. But no, always if you, I mean, I would say the WQE is more of like a late game combo. Like when you're trying to poke from a distance, you do like WQRE or something like that, right? But even then, most of the time, if you can, you're gonna do WE then Q.
Yeah, like it's super. It's very niche in different kind of situations. Like
Yeah,
it's also whatever suits you and
yeah.
whatever's comfortable for you. So that's basically the clear and trade combo. Then we're gonna move on to some advanced slash niche stuff for LeBlanc. Um, what you can do is you can Zonias during your travel time of the W, and you'll be in status but still get the damage off. Can be useful in team fights. Moreover, something that you can do is you can bait enemy abilities by Wing over the wall right here, and just let them throw their abilities and then W back. It's super fast to react with your W. So whenever you spot something, you can instantly chime back and you can get out big cooldowns that way. Moreover, my favorite way of using LeBlanc's W is to just check areas which are unwarded. So you just jump over the wall, and whenever you see the slightest of thing coming at you, you can just W back and be perfectly safe. One more very niche thing with LeBlanc, with LeBlanc W that you can do is you can W between the enemy turrets if you do it correctly. So in this case, it's the triangle rock where you gotta aim your mouse over and then you get no damage. And you can do this on both sides. So for the other side, it's a patch of grass in the middle of the lane. I'll ping it right here. Then there's a lot of possibilities that you can move around the map with your W as LeBlanc. One of my favorites is this one. If you want to be really fast, you can just W over this and really respond fast to a certain roam. Also, these big walls, they're a piece of cake for your W. All right, and then we're gonna move on to LeBlanc's E. Um, there's a lot of ways to use LeBlanc E, and I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of people that find LeBlanc E a very hard ability to use, which is understandable. So the first thing that you really gotta have slash do with your E is you gotta be confident. If you're not confident in your E's, you're gonna miss every single one, and it's gonna be a disaster. You're gonna feel like shit. So you gotta be confident in throwing out your E's, and you're gonna hit a lot more in comparison to when you're not. So how do we want to use E? In lane, of course, it's a great way of trading. It generally really allows us to win trades. And one more thing that's super important with throwing out your E is the distance to your target matters a lot. So the closer you are to your target, the easier it is to hit. As you can see in this example, we W almost on Jace's face, and he can't dodge the E almost. So whenever you try to throw your E, the closer you are, the easier it is to hit, usually. Then, of course, we got the infamous E flash, very deadly combo, very hard to dodge, super hard to respect, and usually ends up in a kill. Also, one more interesting thing with the E, for example, we're playing against the Akali right now. The E grants vision, so it's super good into champions that go stealth, and every single champion gets revealed with it. So how do you hit your E as LeBlanc? So there's a nice way of trying to hit of hitting your E, especially uh, against people that understand dodging. But this also applies for just regular cases. So what we're going to see right now is I W in a straight line towards Diana, but instead of throwing my E onto Diana, I throw it a bit downwards. Because what usually happens is when you W in a certain direction, people dodge into the other direction. And this applies for every single rank, of course, but especially the higher ranks. What people do is they just dodge downwards. And what you can see is that it hits. And that's gonna help you massively with landing your E's.
And this is, I think, was something we need to go really deep on. So what I want you to do, go back. I want to let's go on this again a few times. So go to that yeah, no, so yeah, so this was good. Go to the next one. Keep going on a little bit. You keep playing it from here. So look at the angle. Pause it there. As soon as you cast that initial W, I want you to pause it as you cast that initial W. I want to make a few notes here. You actually didn't W in a straight line relative to the Diana. You actually go at an angle. So yeah. So to clarify here, notice how you went slightly above the Diana. If Diana is to maximize distance away from you, it's actually to go down, isn't it? Because if she goes up straight, right? It doesn't make sense. It goes against your intuition. To run straight in a straight line, you're actually closer kind of to LeBlanc. The reason why Dinah's gonna dodge downwards in this situation is because her mind is telling her, like intuitively, okay, the maximum distance away from LeBlanc in this situation is to go instantly down or away from LeBlanc, which is actually outwards, isn't it? Towards like that brush or like downwards away. So what you've actually done is that you've cornered her. You've actually pushed her in a specific way. If you were to W in a straight line, like directly, literally in a straight line, say you're perpendicular in a way or whatever to the Diana, it's 50-50 which way she goes. She could go up, she can go down. We have no idea where she's going, right? So what you've done here is that you've cornered her. We know she's going to go, highly likely she's going to position downwards, and then you can factor that in with your E usage and press play now. You account for that by placing your E downwards because it's highly likely she's going to dodge downwards.
Yeah.
So that's something that you should do on LeBlanc all the time. If you're in that situation, you don't want to go head on with your E. W. So you want to. You even did it here. Look at your positioning there. Take a look at that. Even though you didn't have your E available, just your initial W, your instinct is to always go at an angle. So you're kind of pushing them into the wall or into a specific angle.
Yeah, exactly. And what we can see with her as well is also in this example, she also dodged downwards.
Same thing, yeah. She dodged downwards again because that's the furthest distance away. She's not going to run straight. It's highly unlikely. So whenever you're W and fishing for an E, don't W in a straight line, perpendicular, or whatever. Literally do it at a slight angle, and then you usher them into one direction. Very, very similar to my Z guide, the ZWEQ combo. You use your ZW to one side, and then you kind of usher them into a location, and then you can like get the double shuriken. Same thing.
Yeah, exactly. And this is, of course, one of the most important things to understand if you want to consistently hit your E. So definitely take a look at this, try this out in your games, and see how it works for you.
I think this E usage is actually the most important part of LeBlanc. Like legit. Like in my opinion, like learning LeBlanc.
Hitting E's. It's all about hitting E's.
I've done many reviews with clients where it's like, if we hit the E, we win lane.
Yeah.
If we miss E, we lose lane. Yeah. It's literally like that.
Yeah, it's huge, and also it's such a big part of your kit.
Massive.
Especially with the ability to create plays. It's your champion basically. All right. So another important thing to hit your E is to not always throw it out at the start. So in this example, I'm holding E, and I'm also waiting for. I'm doing that for two reasons. First of all, is to make her mental stack get overwhelmed, and second of all, is to waste her dashes. So what we can see right here is I just hold my E twice, throw it at the last time when she cannot dodge it, so she gets chained and dies.
And
so we're gonna replay it.
Yeah, that's very important, and this is crucial, like because whenever you're using any champ with a dash, right? Anyone with a dash, their default response is they're waiting for that E. So if you just start with E, they're just automatically going to dash it. So you want to bait it out with either auto attacks, Qs, overwhelm the mental stack, and most of the time it's very similar to like say a blitzcrank. What does a good blitzcrank do? They run at you, they make you dodge side to side, then the gap gets closer, and like you alluded to before, Tim, you were saying how the closer the distance, the higher likely you're going to hit the E. So you don't want to fish for a max range E unless you really, really need to and you know they don't have the gap closer available.
And of course, another very niche thing, but also a very useful thing, is you can hide your E on LeBlanc when you cast W straight after it. So if you EW, your E gets hidden, and it still hits.
That's massive, yeah.
Which you can, of course, use in very creative situations. Now we're going to move on to some more advanced E usage tips on LeBlanc. So in this example, I'm playing against Showmaker, and what I do is...
sorry to interrupt, but this was when Showmaker was in EU for the boot camp, right? For MSI last year?
Yeah, MSI last year. The big boys came to town here in Europe, and it was fun.
Wait, and we should add the funny story, right? We should add the funny story. I think was it you, or was it someone else in the Midland Academy showed me a VOD and didn't tell me it was Showmaker.
I know it's Helia.
Was it Helia? Yeah, we had someone in the MLA send me come to a review, and then I'm like reviewing it and we're getting into the details, and then like after he's like, Curtis, that was Showmaker. It was so funny because like I didn't expect it whatsoever.
Yeah, that's fucking cool. Yeah, it was great that these guys came here.
Yeah, sorry.
And like these guys are very good at League, and they understand every single thing that you're doing and what you're trying to do to them. So these guys also recognize patterns very quickly. So the nice thing about LeBlanc is that you can change up your patterns and therefore your combos, and make it less predictable. So in this first example, what we can see is boom, I throw E instantly after I use my W. I miss it in this case, but Showmaker in this case thinks, okay, he starts with his E. So in my next pattern, in my next combo, I'm going to change this up completely. All right. So to refresh this real quick, what I do right here is I W, I wait for him to use his dash, I QR, and then I E to basically hit it way more easy.
Let's play that again. So you actually did it looks like you did a flash W.
Yep.
Did you flash W or W flash E?
I flash W.
Okay, so you flash W, get the damage, and then you QRE, right? Because you were anticipating that, or you would think that he thought you would start with E, but you don't start with E this time. So you kind of set a pattern with your E usage, and then you broke the pattern.
Yeah, exactly.
And so sometimes you're going to start with E, sometimes you're not. And this time, he panicked, right? He panicked. Yeah. You used the Q first, right? Because he thought that, he'd used that before, and then that allowed you to land your E. Because he used the Q, he rushed the Q. Whereas the first time he didn't rush the Q.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And what we can see in the example after is right here, I've gone to base, I've gone back into lane, got my Lunans right now. And here as well, I change it up. So instead of throwing E out first or last, I throw it down in the middle.
Okay. Wait, so let's play that again. That one looks really sketchy. So here you W Q'd, and then you like wait, and then so what did you do differently here? So you actually held it a little bit.
So what I did here is I W to wave.
Yep.
To close the distance, close the gap.
Yep.
What he did is he queued instantly. But he knew that I still had my E left, and he was like, all right, I need to dodge that, of course. So he's moving around like he wants to dodge my E.
Okay, but then you queued and then you waited to really close the gap. Yeah, okay, I see what you mean.
So instead of throwing it out first for him to dodge it with his Q, or last for him to anticipate it, I throw it in the middle to keep my combos.
Keep it interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I think like a really important point to note here is that there is no like right solution, right? Like you something that you've been alluding to in this guide and that we're constantly going to allude to is like, don't get caught up on like perfecting the combo, you know, like okay, Tim here says you got to do the QW auto combo, whatever it is. It's like no, like you know what the abilities do. Like use your common sense. As long as you understand the importance of landing your E, maximizing your damage, like trying to get the land the W. Like don't overthink it. Feel it out. Like LeBlanc is a feel-oriented champion. You need to feel out the abilities. So the only thing like when it comes to combos is like you got to understand like how the abilities interact with your R. Like that's like the main thing, which I'm assuming we're gonna get to in a little bit anyway.
Yep, we're gonna get to after this. So to end the E usage off, it's my favorite thing. It's also one of the most niche things there is, but it's super powerful if you find the angle and find the use of it. So what you can do on LeBlanc is you can guarantee your E-proc onto an enemy opponent, even when there's enemies or minions or whatever kind of things in the way. You can still guarantee your E-proc onto them. And the way to do that is to E-flash onto them and have your cursor onto them whilst you flash onto them.
When I first saw this, it like blew my mind. I had no idea this was the thing.
Yeah, this is crazy.
This is huge. Like this is advanced. Obviously, this is advanced, but like I feel like this is something that every LeBlanc, if you're a serious LeBlanc man, you need to know how to do this.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, this is gonna win you a fight or win you a skirmish once in your lifetime, or maybe even more. And it's great to pull off. And to show you that it's actually a thing and that it's repetitive, I can do it 4 times in a row. And
so you can just right now you're picking which dummy that you want to go for.
Yeah, it's the most behind one every time.
Yep. So you're doing that one in the middle there, and then you're doing which one are you doing here? Looks like you're going for
the behind one again.
The top one. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. So how do you actually do it? Walk us through specifically what you do with the micro there. How do you do this?
What I do is, as you can see, my cursor is currently on the target, and it's a bit further than the front one, and you can see it highlights the back target. And you're also in flash range, so this means that if I flash onto him right now, it will connect.
So no matter who's near that, as long as that's getting highlighted and you're in flash range,
and you flash on the cursor on the place that your cursor is. Yeah.
Okay, it will hit no matter what.
It will hit.
Interesting.
And here again, even when the dummy is right in front of it, right, we get in the flash range and it hits.
Yeah, and that's massive. The reason it's so big is because, again, it's all about setting up ganks, right? LeBlanc's identity. And that allows you to do that really effectively.
So moving on to LeBlanc's ult, our Mimic. All right, so first of all, here's your cheat sheet. You can always go back in the video after you've seen the examples and understand how the combos work. You can look back at this and get a quick recap of how you want to throw your abilities out. Of course, these combos are all possibilities of using your combos. Definitely find what works for you. It's super important. And we're just going to go into the examples. Starting off with the high burst damage combo. Boom. As you can see, I'm going to rewind it real quick. You either start with E or you don't. But the main premise is that you QRW or QRE. That means it's the 2 sigils from the Q and the R that gets procced. And it's a massive amount of burst damage.
Yep, so both sigils are getting procced by the E.
Yep. Or in this case by the W, because you start with
the W. Yeah.
Yep. And the reason why you can start with E is to stick onto your target if they have any kind of mobility or can dodge your W.
And that's the best combo if someone's going to face check. Right?
Yep, exactly. Yep. Second combo, which you can see Humanoid do in this game. It's the stick and secure combo. You start with the E, you W onto them, QR, and all the sigils get procced, maximum damage, and you basically can't get away from it.
So in that situation, the sigils are getting procced from the E. So your EW and then QR.
Exactly. It takes a bit longer, but it's impossible to escape, especially if you can't react to it.
Yep, and even if they flash, they're still going to be in E range, so it doesn't even matter.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's literally no escaping in that situation.
Yep. Indeed. Moving on. Which is a very important one in team fights or also pretty quick execution. What you do is you RW you flash RW into QW, which generates a lot of AoE damage, but also a lot of burst damage and very quick damage onto enemy opponent. Right here, we can see Humanoid do a beautiful combo onto enemy AD carry, which secures in a win of team fight. We're gonna look at it again.
So that's flash, RWW. It does leave him a little bit exposed here, but like again, you're probably only doing that in a team fight when you've got other people around you, right?
Yeah.
Because
So
you're using both your gap closers pretty aggressively.
yeah, exactly. And to specify, it's the RWQW for the real damage.
Ah, it's the RWQW. Got you.
Yeah.
Yep,
Without the Q, you're gonna lack damage for the
and that's why you don't do W first, because obviously you wouldn't have access to your Q.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta hit your E for that, but how are you gonna hit E in this scenario?
Yeah, that's why RW is superior. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Moving on, which is a very stock standard combo, usually used in lane. It's an easy combo as well. It's very good for trading. You RW into QW.
I would say this is basically, in my opinion, the bread and butter combo. I would say
Yep.
personally, like I think if there's one combo you can take away from this guide, post 6, this is it.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it actually surprises me how many LeBlanc clients that I've coached that don't understand the value of starting fights with RW. Like, it actually surprises me. Like, this should be it. This is like the number one combo. And just to clarify, so Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, the main reason you want to start with RW, there's actually two reasons, right? Number one, RW, level 1, doesn't do as much W as damage as your normal W, right? Because you only have 1 point in your R, where you have multiple points in your W.
Yep.
The other thing is it gives you way more flexibility with your combo usage, right? If you RW, so play it from here, right? You can do many, many things. So pause it as you do the RW. So in that situation, right, if Victor's closer or maybe there's no minions, you can do many combos. You can do E, then W, then Q. You can W, then E, then Q. You can do any order. Whereas if you were to W first, you're so gated by whatever your mimic is. If
Yep.
you mimics the chains or the Q. So this gives you the most flexibility, and like I said, your W literally does more damage than your R
Earlier.
early. And that
Yep.
changes when you get 2 points into your R, correct?
So to specify, the breakpoints are at level 7 and at level 11.
Okay.
So level 7 means 4 points in your W. If you get 4 points in your W deals more damage than your R.
Right, so actually here then, at this one, we have 3 points in your W, your R1
Yeah.
does more damage. Okay.
Yeah,
So you
so
need
the
4
R1
points in your W.
Exactly. And to the other breakpoint is level 11, so of course you're level 2 ultimate. Then your RW deals more damage again.
So level 7, if you're level 7 to level 11, you want to ideally get the W rather than the RW damage.
Yep.
At level 11 though, onwards, your RW does more damage than your W.
Yep,
Gotcha.
exactly. Moving on to the max damage combo that LeBlanc can do in a relatively short amount of time. So we can see Chovy here, and what he does is I want you to look very closely. He QEs, takes it slow, weaves in a lot of auto attacks into R, into a QW. So why is this the max damage combo? First of all, there's a lot of auto attacks being weaved in. Second of all, you get 2 procs of the Q, which is an increase in around 200 damage, which is crazy.
Because he started the fight with a Q and he ended the fight with a Q. Because he used the Q at the very beginning. And the other thing to note here is that a lot of people get confused about the benefits of the ER. Is that people say, you always hear that thrown around, the ER combo is the highest damage. The reason it's the highest damage is not because the ER actually does the most damage, it's because they're in combat for so long that you get so many auto attacks that it is the max damage, right? Like, at least in the early stages of the game.
Yeah, so the ER does the same amount of damage as the QR if you can proc it both ways. But of course, the QR is more burst and the ER is more CC. And in this case, you can get more auto attacks.
And you get more auto attacks off, yeah.
Yep, and you can chain them up for your second part of the queue.
Yeah. Yeah, because Vex is just forced in a situation to stay in combat for so goddamn long that he's just
Yeah,
taking free auto attacks.
yeah, she's fucked,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah, yeah.
All right. So the last combo, which is my favorite combo, not always the most practical, not always the most reliable, but it is very fast and very flashy. Um, it's W, usually to gap close into a QRE to kill the opponent.
I just noticed, by the way, a little side, you're actually versing my friend over in EU. He's boot camping in EU right now. The jungler on the other team, you press tab, is my friend. I just
What?
noticed. He's a civil. You press tab before that
Let's see.
the Gragas on the enemy team. His name's Civil. I just noticed. Anyway, sorry. But
Oh
yeah, so
yeah,
this is
I
the
did him dirty
combo.
that game. I'm sorry.
Welcome to EU.
I did him dirty. Yeah. So
So walk us through. Sorry, so walk us through that one again.
yeah, I'll do that. So what you do in this case is you W to get into range,
Yep.
and you're gonna do a very fast, very quick combo QRE. Of course, you got to be able to land your E.
Yep.
In this case, nice to the minions.
This is actually the combo that I saw a lot from Showmaker in Worlds last year,
Yep,
wasn't it? This is the
yep,
combo that show. If you go back to the Worlds VODs in 2020, I always forget the 2021. I believe was it 2021, right?
yeah,
2021 Worlds,
2021.
and he was constantly poking from the side. So he would like shove side, come mid, be around the ledge when it was like an A-Ram mid, and just W, QIE, pop back.
Yep,
He was just doing that over and over and over and over again. So this is
yep,
like this is probably one of the more bread and butter combos that you're going to use in more mid to late game.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Super fast, but it's not that reliable.
It's just a
That's the
poke
only part.
combo, usually. It's a
Yeah,
poke combo.
usually a poke combo indeed. Then there's one more thing that's super useful on LeBlanc because you got some high cooldowns on your W and your E. Sometimes you're in a situation where you can't use them, but you do have your Q or your R up. So what you can do in that case is you can QRQ, of course with breaks between it, to still get both sigils procced and all the damage off.
Ah, I didn't even know that. Right. Because the sigil stays for so long by the time your Q comes back up.
Yeah,
You can actually proc the sigil with the... Oh, right.
yeah,
Fascinating.
exactly. So to show it again,
But you have to hold, right? You can't just use the QR instantly.
yeah,
You have to use the R after the Q a little bit. You have to wait a bit.
exactly. You have to
Okay.
hold a bit.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and that's basically for the main combos with your ulti on LeBlanc. And I'm gonna repeat it once more because it's super important. You need to find which combos work for you. There's like a lot of combos that can work in different kind of situations, and you gotta figure out which ones do you like, which ones are you comfortable with, and which ones can you utilize to the best amount and find success with in that sense. Because as I said, there's a lot of options, a lot of room for creativity and different combos and a lot of scenarios. And the ones that feel best with you are usually the ones that you have the most success with.
Totally agree. You got to feel it out because you're not going to be able to think about it in the game as well.
Yeah,
Right? Like in
yeah,
these moments, you got
exactly.
to feel.
Oh,
You got to
you got to
feel it
feel
out.
for sure. Okay, moving on. How to use LeBlanc's passive. So, before we go into the ways to use her, we're going to read what it says. When LeBlanc drops below 40% HP, she creates a clone after which they both instantly become invisible for 1 second. 1 second. That's a lot. Especially in combat, in team fights. You're being invisible for 1 second is crazy useful. This makes it a tool for all-ins, escaping, but also some other niche stuff, and we're instantly going to go into examples. The first of all, a tool for all-ins and team fights. What we can see right here is I'm under a lot of threat because I'm not too far ahead, and my clone really helps me survive in this case. So I'm going to replay it once again.
And it kind of mitigates damage in a way, doesn't it?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it mitigates a lot of damage. So if we look at Graves in this instance, it's very specific, but he has 2 shots right now, and he fires right here, one, and he would be able to fire another one, but due to my clone, he's not able to fire that one because I go invisible, and I can Zonias in time for my E to kill him.
Right. Because if you didn't have that, you wouldn't have been able to get your Zonias off. You would have just died, is what
Yeah,
you're
it would
saying.
probably just auto
Yeah.
right here.
Yeah. 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 Yeah,
Exactly.
but to be honest, this is one part of LeBlanc I've actually really underestimated. I think it's extremely. I just completely overlooked how good this passive is.
Yeah, yeah, especially due to all of its different uses. But the most important part is in the skirmishing, in the 1v1s. It's a second of invisibility. That's a long time. A lot can happen in a second. All right. So moving on, there's a lot of niche ways you can use your clone as well. For example, Spyro does it very well. You can pull the wave with your clone and basically mess up an enemy's wave state just by dropping below a certain
That was insane.
threshold.
That was really, really
Yeah,
cool.
this is super creative.
Spyro is really good.
Yeah, he's very good. And Akali basically gets stuck into lane by him using that. So very nice utilization of LeBlanc passive. Right here, you can also use it to block abilities, of course, bait abilities, bait out enemies, and really use it to your advantage in skirmishing, fights and skirmishing. So Caitlyn plays it very well, but my clone blocks the ultimate, which really allows me to play this fight. Then I bait her with sending my clone in first.
Wow.
And I kill
Play
her.
that again. I want to see how that interaction worked. I want to see the combo as well. Can you actually go from the start? I actually want to see what combo you used to try and kill here. So you Everfrost, so you went in, you Everfrosted.
Yep.
So you W'd Everfrost, and then you... Oh, so you RW'd first, right? So you RW'd first, and then... and then EQ, R, then W. Okay.
Yep.
And then she peels back, and then your clone takes the damage from the R, and then you use your clone to go in, confuse her. And you could probably even use your clone to walk over the traps as well, right? I think that's something that's probably possible.
Yeah, that's definitely possible. And that's also super niche, super creative way of using it. Very useful. One more thing to note out with LeBlanc's clone is it has also a lot of niche interactions with enemies. One of these things, it gives Victor's passive 25 stacks if it manages to kill your clone, which is huge for a Victor. Like, you don't want to send your clone into a Victor. Also, it gives 25 gold, which is always nice to pick up for an enemy. And it also resets Samira E. So be careful with just throwing out your clone and selling it everywhere, and just usually try to keep it a bit on your side. Farming. It's very important, and it's also super notorious on LeBlanc. Like, I get a lot of comments, a lot of questions. People hate it. People can't do it.
How to farm, how to farm, how do I farm?
How to farm everywhere. How to CS. I just can't do it. And also, it's a super important thing on LeBlanc. It's actually not that hard. So there's a few tricks that I'm going to teach you how to farm on LeBlanc. We're going to go over this, and then we're going to go into a few examples. So first of all, don't hesitate to use your Q for CSing. Like, it's an auto attack reset, or like it's not a reset, but it chimes in between your auto attacks. Very nice, and it really can help you hit those CS that you would usually fail to hit. Also, there's ways to clear waves with your W, which we're going into in the examples. And you can also use your E to CS. Don't be afraid to use it. Don't use it all the time. It costs a bit of mana, especially early game. But use it to hit a cannon, to clear waves. Use it on the highest HP target or on the front minion, and don't be afraid to use it. Also, the last point we're going to go into in the examples. So let's dive into those. So how to CS on LeBlanc? It's pretty easy. You auto attack the back minions. You make sure they're all low, and then you can finish them off with your W. This prevents you of losing the creeps if you W beforehand. Boom, you collect them all. So what would have happened if I W before I auto attack these minions? Tower would have probably finished 2 out of 4 off, and I would have really struggled with the CSing. Another way, this is a longer clip. I'm going to show you the entire clip and look at the CSing in this instance. So right here, we want to be efficient as LeBlanc. We got a very short ult cooldown, and we don't really got to hesitate to use it. So we also use it to get a very fast wave clear, get ourselves a nice bit of tempo in this case. So with this, we reset, we move on, and we move to a side lane. During this move, we see that our jungle is up, and also in this, it counts. We want to be efficient, so we also use our ult for the blue buff. Just don't hesitate to use it. It's all worth it. We want to be as fast on the map as possible. All right, so we're moving top again, and right here we can see I use the W on the wave, and I instantly miss 2 CS. Which is of course something that you rather want to prevent. Again, here I use W to last hit the creeps.
So you're kind of using your abilities in a high value fashion. You're trying to use your abilities to fish for trades, but also get CS in the meantime.
Yeah, exactly. And make sure you hit those CS, of course, because it's way easier with your abilities than your auto attacks.
And another thing you did before is that you waited till the minions were grouped up before you used your abilities. That's also something you probably want to do as well when if you can, group up the minions and then try and AoE them all with your W.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, that's going to be shown in this example as well. So to touch back onto this, once you got some AP on LeBlanc, you can just W the backline and one-shot it. And after that, it's pretty easy to kill the melee minions. So here's what I use my W on the 3 last minions to make sure I get the CS, and I combine that with trying to fish for a trade.
So it's not like you're solely focusing on farm, but you're not solely focusing on trades either. You're doing a combination of both.
Yeah, exactly. If possible, if you can combine them, that's very nice.
Yep.
And right here, the wave's coming up. I got my Ludens coming up. I wait for my Ludens. I stack it all up, and the wave's gone.
And you're not afraid to use your abilities on the wave as well.
Yeah, exactly. And the reason why I don't wait to use my W before the minions are low is because I'm confident and I've got a lot of experience, and I've got my patterns and ways how to CS. So that's pretty stock standard for me. And I'm not afraid to use my in this sense. It's pretty clear that I'm going to get the CS, so I'm not afraid to use my W in advance before the others are low. Moving on to another very important part of LeBlanc's game, which is the mid game. So I'm going to use this for you guys as a cheat sheet again, and we're just going to dive straight into the examples, and I'm going to give you clarification of these points during the examples. I'm going to show you a mid-game clip that I played, and the main goal of LeBlanc in the mid-game is to shove and move. And you want to aim to be healthy. So you want to catch waves, get XP, get your gold so that you're equal or ahead of the enemies, your lane opponent, but especially the enemy threats being the AD carry. So in the mid game, your trading is very non-committal, very fast, and it's super hard for the enemies to respond. Also, use your R on cooldown because you can.
That's a very important point. Use your R as often as you can. Don't hold on to your R. It has such a low cooldown, it doesn't even matter.
Yep. Exactly.
And I love what you're doing here, by the way. You're killing 2 birds with 1 stone, right? You're AoEing the wave, right? You're AoEing the wave to get the shove, which allows you to shove and move and pressure and help your team. But you're also obviously getting damage onto the enemy as well.
Yeah, exactly. And it makes it very efficient. It gives me a lot of space.
And little side note here, like notice how like tanky this Rise is, right? He's got Kindle Gem, he's got Mercs, and you're not gonna one shot this Rise, right? So like,
no, never.
Relax. Yeah. You know, one thing when I watch your LeBlanc that I really love about it is you're happy to take a very short trade, just like that. Boom, you W, you get the EQ, chunk 15% of his AP. Great, that's it. Don't need to solo kill him. You don't need anything fancy. And I think like when I watch you play, especially mid game comparatively to a lot of LeBlancs, you're very patient.
Yeah.
Because you believe that you scale, and LeBlanc does scale.
Yeah.
As long as you understand how to play the map and you understand how to play out of Fog of War, like the special ops mindset, and you have competence in your E and ability to hit the E, you scale completely fine.
Yep, exactly.
Obviously, to differing degrees depending on the comps, it's situational. But especially if you farm well, you farm moderately okay in the early game, and you get to your Keys power spikes, you're going to be okay. And that's
Yep.
like this belief, this inner belief that your champ scales allows you to be way more poised and controlled heading into the mid game.
Yeah, in these kind of situations, like we're slightly ahead,
Yep.
and I'm just super confident that this is in the bag. I don't need to do any crazy
Yeah.
stuff.
And this is a perfect example. You take the short trade, is what it is. And like
Yep.
ideally in a situation like this, your jungler's hovering you, but your jungler's not hovering you, so there's really not much you can do. You should just play slow.
Yep, exactly. So that's also very important that you mentioned that, because in the mid game, like especially when it's even, you want to make plays with your jungler. You want to follow around. You want to coordinate with him. For example, play with assist him at the herald, ask him to come to your lane, ask him for hover, create a win condition with your jungler, or just in general, make it as easy as possible for yourself. Also, you want to look for creative picks or kills whenever you see the opportunity. And one very nice thing, what I like to do in the mid game, is swap my yellow trinket over to a sweeper.
And one thing to really note here is that like, um, you're not gonna win a lot of 1v1s in mid game, especially when they start to build mercs, right? Like
Yeah,
a lot of the time, LeBlanc is just not gonna get pressure in the side lane in the isolated 1v1, and that is okay. It's not
yeah,
until your jungler come and hovers you, and that's why calling for hover is very important. That's when you can actually start to get things done, right? That's
yeah,
when you can start to kill, have pressure. So if you're not going to call for hover from your jungler and your jungler's doing other things, you've got to play accordingly. Then you might have to shove, catch that wave, and then hover your team if they're not going to
yep,
hover you, and adapt accordingly. Now, in situations like this, it'd be ideal if Zinzal's hovering you. I think you probably could have done a better job calling for hover here, but I'm assuming Zinzal, maybe this is a high elo game, he's probably going to do it anyway. But if you're maybe in the lower elo brackets, you could probably be a little bit more proactive in how often you call for hover. But this is
yep,
exactly what you're looking for. Zinzal's hovering you. If they
yep,
come, you fight.
exactly. And with my Ludens, with my blue buff, I can just go for non-committal trades without him
Yep.
being able to respond to me, and chip away at him with a, yeah, and super
Yep.
strong. So in this example, he disrespects, and he's
That was a
basically out
really
of.
nice poke trade. That was really, really nice. What was that? Was that WQIE? Yeah, that's that.
Yeah,
That's that trade that we mentioned before in mid game that we really like doing.
yeah, exactly.
Non-committal, bursty.
Yep, and he's basically unable to attend any skirmish because of
Yep.
his health right now. He's in a lot of trouble.
Yep. And as long as you're not, you're not missing the farm, you're going to be okay. This is only a
Yeah,
problem if you're ditching waves and you're missing farm.
yeah, exactly. Because once you're at that point that you don't have any serious threat onto anyone, you can't do this anymore, because they're not going to respect you, and they're going to bully you for it.
Now, sometimes, I mean, once this top tower breaks, though, this gives you a lot more options, right? Then you can actually
Yep,
funnel it into their top side. You can probably use the Fog of War to maybe make a pick around that red or Krugs or whatever. And you can maybe even start baiting Baron and things like that.
exactly.
Pre this top tier one, you need to be, securing this tower and then
Yep,
playing patient.
exactly. And in this case, also try to stay out of fog of war whenever possible.
Yeah, same premise here as well, right? Double
Yep,
distortion, out of vision, peel back. And now that this tower is opened up, you have so much more flexibility. Now, ideally, the goal would be to light up that top side with your team, sweep it up,
yep,
shove and move, hover. If they
yep,
overextend to the side, you collapse. And then worst case scenario, they react to waves all the way back at tier 2. That's all good. You guys can eventually make something happen, maybe around the Raptors or something like that. Or they respect so much that you just can, freely start Baron or bait or whatever it might be. Someone's eventually probably going to face check.
yep, exactly. And that's the power of LeBlanc. Your control of areas is very strong because of your kill threat onto
Now,
enemies.
now, would you say that LeBlanc is a champion that needs to get to objectives early?
Um, well, that's a very, very good question. Um, Usually, I would say it really benefits you, like really benefits you, if you can find a nice angle, a nice way to place yourself.
Hmm.
Although I don't think it's 100% of the time necessary, but she definitely benefits from it. Yeah.
Because like in my mind, there's two ways of viewing it. It's like, okay, you could stand a side lane longer, make them feel pressured, and then you can always come in with the TP and get to the fight pretty easily, and then
Yeah,
do your job because you're
exactly.
burst oriented. But at the same time, getting to the objective early is also quite nice because this is actually a situation where you've chosen to come to the objective late,
Yep.
right? And
I
now
have.
you force Nah to group top side to
Yep.
respond to that top wave, and now you TP in. So
Yep.
that's the benefit, right? You've actually made them react, and then Nas obviously forced a TP in response to you. But this only works as well because your team is ahead, and they seem to actually have control of the area.
Yep.
Like if they
Exactly.
were behind, like if your team was behind, they didn't have
Way
control. The
harder.
enemy had a lot of engage. You can't do that, right? You need to get there
Yep.
earlier. The disadvantage to getting there late is that you don't have the opportunity to look for those short poke trades. Like if you get there early, and you sweep. I mean, either one or two things happen. They face check you. You get like a nice little pick because someone face checking you, and they try to get vision, or you can just do that combo, right? The WQRE chunk someone out, and then it's basically a 4v5.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what it seemed like Showmaker in Worlds in last year. He was getting to objectives pretty early and just maneuvering around the sides, constantly looking for poke. He actually played LeBlanc more like a poke mage, didn't he?
Yeah, he played it like super unique, and it worked out super well for him.
But I go back here. Sorry, I was talking over your gameplay here. I really like what you did here. Was you made Nah react topside. You then TP'd in. The great thing about this TP ward, this ward here, is that it gives you flex. I mean, it gives you the perfect angle coming out of from ward from the side straight onto the back line to complement your volley. And I'm assuming something we're going to talk about here is like, you know, LeBlanc can actually just play peel in some games, like if versus very linear comps. You can play for like chains if you have a really fed AD carry and play like front to back.
Yep.
But you can also do what you're doing here, which is complement, in this case, volley bear, as in our Nautilus dive as well, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I think there are a lot of similarities between Vex and LeBlanc in some sense. You can play peel, and you can also just create space and dive as well. You can dive
exactly.
backline.
Yeah, there's a lot of similarities, but also a lot of difference because the benefit of LeBlanc is she has way more mobility, which you can also really utilize.
Yeah, you're in and out. Vex doesn't have that ability to go in and out.
Yep, exactly.
But and the thing, correct me if I'm wrong here, Tim, as well. Like, I don't think there is any cookie cutter solution to LeBlanc mid game. It depends on what you believe to be the win condition. Like, if you and your jungler are really fed and you're the two strong members, you're probably going to play through side a lot more than you would in other games, right?
Yeah.
Like you'd probably want to call for hover, play around your mid jungle. Other games where maybe you're even and you've got a really fed AD carry, you'll probably want to be shoving and moving and then maybe sacrificing a wave if need be to hover your team and then play peel. Sometimes that's just going to be the reality of the situation.
Yep, exactly. And that's also what an advanced thing that really comes up in the mid game is when do you want to sacrifice your waves for kills or for good positioning? And that is a very, very intuitive aspect, and it's super hard to master. But in general, guidelines can be, for example, that a skirmish is breaking out or going to break out whenever you see that information, or objective is coming up and you're in a position to assassinate someone. This can be because you're healthy. This can also be that the enemy has no vision yet of an area, and they're going to walk into it, so you can control the area and have a lot of threat onto them. There will be some examples of this a bit later with the team fighting section. Another guideline can be that you see a dive opportunity, or you see opportunity where you can get so much for your team that you're just able to sack waves and go for it. But it's super hard to really make a decision. Okay, what is the good decision here or what not? Because it also is very important to stay healthy as LeBlanc, and sacking too many waves can literally.
Then you're just not going to be strong anymore, so you're just not going to have threat.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what I think for a lot of people, they just got to have a crack and have a hypothesis. Like in your reviews, guys, when you're making these mid-game decisions, when Tim's alluding to whether I'd sack that wave and then group it for better quality positioning, getting to the objective early, or whether it's, okay, I feel as though my team has a lot of control, they don't need me to get control, I can come in late with a TP like he did in that previous fight. Make a decision in the game. who cares if it's wrong or right? And then go into the review and then try and visualize what the alternative situation would have looked like. Like if in that situation, if you go back here, Tim, so just really quickly, if we were reviewing this, great. He chose to TP in late and then TP to that wall because he had a great. He probably. I'm assuming this game. Number one, your team had a decent. That they felt pretty strong in the 4v4. They had a favorable 4v4, but there was also a really really good flank ward.
Yep.
So that probably. I'm assuming some of the variables that he processed intuitively. In an alternate reality, if he actually TP'd there earlier, I would visualize. Okay, maybe what could I have got done there? What would have happened? Maybe Nah wouldn't have reacted to it. Maybe Nah would have A-rammed and it would have been different. Who knows? But you try and at least visualize. And if you do this over and over and over again, and if you're really honest with yourself and you put aside your ego, you're going to be able to, again, see what is most optimal. And it's just a case-by-case basis. So I think the few things you'd be looking for is how much control does your team already have? Do they need you to get control of the area? How much engaged does the enemy have? If the fight is going to be played out really fast, like can you afford to be late to the objective or the area because your team's just going to get aced? Like the Malphite is going to eye your team and then the fight's done. Or does the enemy not have TP and they're going to feel really pressured if you're just sitting in the side lane? These are all probably things you need to consider.
Yeah, exactly, and that also makes it very hard to make the optimal decision. But as Curtis already said, you just got to go into it and see if you made the right decision or could improve something next time, because there will be a lot of situations where it's not entirely sure what the best decision is, especially before the decision is being made.
Yeah. And half the decisions I always make in mid-game, I don't know if they're the most optimal. All right, I'm making a decision, and I will decide. I will look at it after. I'm only going to know in the review if it was the most optimal mid-game decision or not.
Yeah, exactly. So moving on to the final part of this mid-game gameplay, the special mindset, beautiful right here. We know exactly where the enemies have a vision. We know that there's no vision. Instead of hovering top, I'm sacrificing this wave because I see a nice opportunity on mid. Throw out my sweeper, make sure I'm not on vision indeed, and get a nice pick.
Wow, this is amazing. This is so nice. Oh, wow. And look at that. That's all, and that was only possible because you didn't catch that top wave.
Yep.
If you caught on that top wave, then the Thresh and the Caitlyn are, okay, I know where LeBlanc is. LeBlanc's obviously shoving and moving.
Yeah.
Right? But you said no to that wave, and that's this trade-off. You didn't show. You have more threat, out of vision, out of fog of war, special ops mindset. You're able to make a nice little pick.
Yeah, exactly. And this pick just secures into Baron into a win of the game.
Look at that. That literally won you the game.
Yeah,
and the game.
Exactly. And this is gonna happen more than once, especially when playing LeBlanc.
And that is also why LeBlanc is a champion that scales with like understanding the game and game sense. Like your ability to know how the enemy's gonna feel, like it's so important. If you're autopiloting coming out of base and I see top wave, I'm gonna go on top wave. I mean, where's the special ops mindset there? You're playing PUBG, you got the ghillie suit, are you going to run around and hop around and show everyone where you are? That's probably
at
not
least
what you
utilize it.
Utilize it, alright?
Alright, so that basically sums up the mid game for LeBlanc. Moving on to late game and team fighting on LeBlanc. So what we're going to do is we're going to instantly jump into some examples, and I'm going to clarify these examples and make it clear of how you can team fight and play the late game optimally on LeBlanc. There's a lot of ways to team fight on LeBlanc. First of all, let's start with the most important thing. Positioning is the most important thing when team fighting as LeBlanc, because you're a threat, and usually you're not a threat when you're from front to back, but you're rather a threat when you come from the side. So in this game, my positioning is pretty good. I come from the other angle. I try to go for a nice AoE damage combo, which is the flash W into R. Sadly, I got cancelled by Poppy, but the idea behind it is good. And this.
And notice how you could have also easily like came through the front, but you decided to say, screw it, I'm gonna actually loop all the way around, go around that red buff area from before, which allowed you to get onto the back line. If you rewind a little bit, like that needs to be the mindset. You can't be like, here I am, everyone. You got to come out of fog of war. I mean, ideally, even better if you actually have the sweeper. but yeah, the premise is still the
Exactly.
same.
Exactly. So
And
I get a
again,
nice.
same thing as well. You're not afraid to use your flash
No, not at all.
as well. Like so you use
Yeah.
your flash here, so you can get both the W and the RW damage here as well.
Yeah.
That's the flash combo. Yeah,
Exactly.
that's what I love. I love that as well because again, who cares? You don't need your flash.
Yeah. On LeBlanc, it's usually very nice to use your flash aggressively instead of on a lot of other champs where you want to use it defensively. Moving on to the next example, right here, we uh, we can see another very important thing for LeBlanc in the late game. You still want to be looking for these picks, for these skills, because if you can create a man advantage, it's super easy to snowball leads through that.
Wow. So looking for picks and transition if possible, and this stems from
Yep.
shoving a wave, hovering out of vision. Because you can either use the shove into hover out of vision two ways. You can camp and then pick someone in transition, or you can use the man advantage and maybe force a fight or poke the other four or three,
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's 4-5, and I still come from the side, still have a good position, and this allows us to win the team fight.
And I think it's also a little side note here, like especially when you're in the mid to late game. I think it's really important you use a lull stage to identify like key threatening abilities onto you. You know,
Yep.
like for you, it's probably intuitive. It's like, okay, Poppy W, I need to be careful of that. I need to be careful of the Ari charm and things like that. But for people who are learning LeBlanc, because you're getting in there, right? You're having to get in there with your W. I'm not saying you're fully committal, but it's important to identify the abilities that can interrupt your damage and lock you down. Because if you're going in with W and then there's like a Poppy that interrupts you with a W, or maybe there's a list that R's you or a TF gold card or whatever it might be, you're just done.
Yeah,
Right?
you're dead.
So it's very important that you're using the lull stage to actively identify the members that you need to be careful of.
Yeah, exactly. Want to care for enemy threats and pull the trigger at the right time. All right. In this next example, we're going to show it real quick again. It's the way how Humanoid plays this team fight. This is beautiful LeBlanc right here. Comes from the side, out of vision, gets some AoE damage off, and eliminates the enemy key threat. So it's 4v5. Basically, solo wins the team fight with this play.
And I really want to highlight something here. So there's many aspects. So pause it, just add like here, right? So let's look at this. The great thing about this is that even if, right, so obviously he swept. You can see he actually swept before this, so he knows there's no vision there, right? But let's say hypothetically they know he's there. It doesn't even matter because what are they going to do? Are they just going to give up the dragon, right? So it's either what are they going to do? They're going to give up the dragon and be like, oh, we're too scared to go in because LeBlanc's just going to get onto our backline, or maybe you're going to zone their backline in general, or you're going to force them to panic and then group up, or you're going to make them hesitate. It doesn't matter either, or whether they know you're there or don't know you're there, as long as you're actively considering key like their key CC abilities.
Yep.
You're helping your team. You're actually helping your team by creating space. You're using threats as a way to help your team, right?
Yep.
And here, I mean, in this case, Rakan doesn't have R, right? Yep. There's actually no hard CC. Trundle. This is actually just an incredibly good LeBlanc game, right?
It's crazy, yeah.
It's just, I mean, Trundle useless into LeBlanc, Oriana pretty bad into LeBlanc.
Yeah.
I can't actually tell what Broken Bait's playing, but
It's Camille.
Camille, right. So Camille can be a little bit on, but Camille doesn't have R either. So
exactly.
all their key abilities are down. So in this case, Humanoid probably knows, okay, they have no key CC abilities. They've already used them. Even if they know I'm here, it doesn't even matter. But in this case, I can just send it. They can't kill me. They can't lock me down. And that's what makes a very good LeBlanc game.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's very important. You're still creating space, even if they know you're there.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
By the way, you actually wouldn't be able to do that if Camille had R.
No.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, I think in this case, he would have been able to, but for example, with Rakan R, out of question. Out of question, for sure. So this last clip really explains the most optimal way to play LeBlanc in a team fight. So what we do right now is we know that the enemy has no vision yet on the utmost bot side of the game. So what I do is, for security reasons, I do my sweeper, I wrap around, I know the dragon is coming up, I'm nice and early for the objective, and I'm on a place where I know I'm not seen. So even in this case, I communicate to my team, let me get a good angle, let me get a pick, because I know I'm in such a good spot that I can just win the fight from this place. and that's exactly what's going to happen. I wait till one of them disrespects, and I get the key enemy threat, and we win the team
Wow.
fight.
And that's the important. I mean, this is actually the benefit of getting to the objective early,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Because your team, maybe your team doesn't feel. I mean, the enemy maybe has a stronger straight front to back. You need to get to the objective early, coming from the side.
Yep.
I like it.
Yeah.
Sweeper early to the objective, staying out of fog of war, waiting for them to commit to the objective, overwhelming their mental stack. And then by the time Jinx realizes he's flashing out, and then even if you didn't kill Jinx, it doesn't even matter. You've just probably burnt
Yeah.
Jinx flash. You've
Lulu
burnt
R.
Lulu R. The fight, you can just wait. Your cooldowns go back in again.
Yep, exactly.
Or that you're
And-
just too scared to go in. You just get the objective anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And one more thing to note with this is already we can see Jace showing up on the map right here, but 9 out of 10 times someone's gonna actually walk into you, and it's gonna be even easier.
Even easier.
So it's having these kind of positioning is super important to being very useful in team fights.
And what combo did you use here? Did you start with RW? What did you do here?
So I W'd in because I want to get the highest amount of damage.
So you got because you saw an angle to go straight east. You went WEQ.
Yep.
WEQR, and
Yep,
then pop
exactly.
back to W. Yeah.
All right. So for the learning path of LeBlanc, if you start with LeBlanc, you really gotta understand if LeBlanc is a champion for you. Does the champion clip with you? Yes or no? If it doesn't, don't try to force it. Also, you really want to test your limits and get an actual feel for how you want to play the champion. This also means learning the difference in combos and feel which one work for you. So if we're moving on to a bit more intermediate LeBlanc, you want to focus on her identity and also on the way that she likes to play the game. You want to think actively about what does LeBlanc want to do and how can I do this. This means improving accuracy on ganks, not always front to backing, but improving your kills in the lane. That's basically what you want to improve in your intermediate LeBlanc journey. So if we're moving on to the 50 plus games, if you're starting to get very advanced at LeBlanc, stop dying. Very important.
Yep.
It's big.
Well, but it sounds easy, but it's not. Like doing everything that we've mentioned before this point. Like obviously, taking the aggressive trades, fishing for ease, all this sort of thing. And because LeBlanc is a moderately low to mid range champion, not dying is actually a massive part of playing a champion like LeBlanc. Like if you're getting behind in the other game, you're done. So. Stop dying, even though it sounds really simple. What that basically means, and the way you guys should interpret that, is start to value your life much higher rather than permanent limit testing. Now it's a matter of execution, showing yourself what you now know, and then obviously that's gonna encapsulate the positioning from the side, key threat assessment, understand the key threatening CC abilities that really lock you down. Starting to get a lot more specific about matchup understanding rather than just blasé going in there, sending it with your abilities. And I think a really important thing I like about the 50 plus games, and I think is very important, and I recommend the same with many other champs, is try other builds, right?
Yep.
Like go down the Ludens route, go down the Everfrost route, try out differing builds, see what works for you. Because up until this point, you probably just want to be sticking to the one build. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Like pre 50 games, like you probably want to just stick to the Ludens.
It makes it way easier.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, and be creative after your 50 games and really interpret your style of playing LeBlanc and make it work in your own way. So moving on to the common mistakes and misconceptions. First of all, we talked about it last slide, dying. Just don't die too much. It's so important.
So what are some common things when you obviously reviewed other LeBlancs in the MLA? When people die, at least the vibe I get from a lot of LeBlancs is that they don't realize the significance of just one death.
Yep.
Right? Like they don't realize how that one death can completely change LeBlanc's threat range and identity moving forward into the game. And I think when I watch your LeBlanc and when I see other people's LeBlanc, you're very poised, you're very confident that like even if nothing happens, as long as you're farming relatively well and you don't die, an opportunity will present itself. Yep. So, in your experience when you coach, like, what are some of the key reasons people die? What would you say? Is it more just like they have that blasé mentality, or is it lack of threat assessment, or is it what do you think it is?
So, there's basically three things that really come to my mind right now. First of all, it's not valuing life in combination with being greedy. So they think trading kills is fine when you have 10 stacks on Dark Seal, which
Mm,
it's not.
mm.
Another thing is key threat assessment, such as not understanding that a Malzar can argue when you jump in. And the last thing is mispositioning and coming from wrong angles, so you're very vulnerable and you
Just like
can't use your
front to
kit.
backing, doubling through the entire team when you
Yeah,
should be hovering out to the side, right?
e- exactly, exactly. Those
Gotcha.
are the main thing that
Okay.
I see. Yep. And the other parts kind of speak for themselves. Misconceptions. LeBlanc doesn't scale. She does. If you farm well, there's a lot of champions that just can't deal with you. They can't catch you. You counter them in many different ways. And this also means tanks.
Yeah. I actually
Um,
want to add on to this, sorry to
yeah.
interrupt, but one of the big reasons I think a lot of people don't understand that LeBlanc scales is because she requires a few things. She requires a lot of game understanding and awareness, right? Like if you don't understand how to come in from the side, you don't understand how to use fog of war, your key threat assessment isn't good. You don't know how to pick your windows. You're going to find it very difficult to do damage. And then inevitably you're going to be, obviously you're not going to think the champ scales because you're not going to be able to do the damage. But another thing as well, right? From a raw stat check perspective, if you're playing LeBlanc into like an Oriana, and then you just face check all of Oriana's damage, or Syndra, and you face check all of Syndra's
Mhm.
damage, it's going to be so easy to assume that your champ doesn't scale, because it's like, oh yeah, I use my abilities, and she used her abilities, she did more damage than me, therefore I don't scale, right? She does more damage, she stat checks
Yeah.
me. But you're completely disregarding the mobility factor, right? Like
Yep.
so with LeBlanc, the way you got to view it is that sure, from a raw stat check perspective, if we're going to cast all my, I'm standing in front of you casting all my abilities, and you're going to stand in front of me cast all your abilities, I'm probably not going to win. But I can come in from, I can get in and out. I can take a short trade and get non-committal poke really, really easily. I can't get caught in the side lane. I can't die. Like I'm really, really, I'm slippery. And I can get onto the back line way easier. And I can kite people out with my chain so I can actually do damage to melees without them doing damage to me. So there's like all these other things at play. So you can't, you got to get out of the frame of mind where it's like, we're just going to spam abilities on each other and see who wins. Like, no, of course LeBlanc's not going to scale that way. Because
Yep.
utility is inherently, you can't put a value on utility, right? It's hard to put a value on utility, isn't it? It's hard to put a value on mobility.
Yeah. I'm not even sure how much I would value it. Like
Yeah.
it's also different every single game.
And different every single game. I think there are some games where she isn't going to scale objectively, but most of the time she is.
Yeah. Yeah. Most of the time she is indeed. And that also factors in with dealing with tanks. Like you got your CC, like tanks have a very hard time getting onto you. So LeBlanc can deal with tanks in different ways, and also if actually needed, you can build Leandries. So she has different ways to deal with tanks. Also, LeBlanc isn't the hard champion. It might seem hard, and the skill cap is really high, but picking her up at a basic level, understanding her identity, I think everyone is able to do that. Also, if you get your routines and practice on the farming with LeBlanc, I'm pretty sure everyone can find their way in that as well. And if you come from the right angle, team fighting,
Like we've
it
covered many times.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's also
She
very
can
doable.
team fight.
So I got a lot of questions from people from the MLA that they don't really know how to actually win games on LeBlanc. They can get leads, but closing out games feels very hard. So we're just going to get into some examples and we're going to dive into it. So the main way that LeBlanc wins games is by creating a man advantage. And this is usually done by assassinating. This can also be done by poking out someone so they have to reset. But creating a man advantage is a very strong part of your kit. And in this example, it allows me to pick off Ari, and we get a very good 4v5 team fight angle, which just wins us the game in a pretty equal game.
So in your mindset heading into mid game is like, okay, you're going to try and pick someone off before a team fight, like whether they're in transition, you're trying to
Yep.
they're walking to an objective, whatever. Like we've shown examples,
Yep.
or you're going to kind of get to the objective early and maybe do like the WQRE combo,
Yep.
and then chunk someone to like 50% HP, and then it's just a way easier fight, right?
Yeah. Exactly. And that also ties into LeBlanc's identity, and use the special ops mindset to get those picks, and it will win you a lot of games by just having the man advantage. Another way of winning games with LeBlanc is getting AoE damage off in team fights. It can be done by killing enemy win condition, but also by bursting Lydia front line or supporting your carry, creating a win condition, facilitating it.
Right, so here you actually just played front to back, right?
Yep, front to back. We got a super strong Jinx, so I TP in to peel for her, and we just burst the hacker in with the front line, so she can get resets and carry the fight after that. Exactly, and that basically sums it up, the easiest way to actually win games on LeBlanc.
And the whole look, the thing I will add on to this is, you know, making picks before, the biggest advice I'll give for making picks before objectives or in transition is that you need to be thinking about the next objective and using the lull states to put yourself in the mind of the enemy. Like if you go back, can you go back to that first example where you made the pick onto the Ahri? The one thing I want to highlight here is that this is not easy. You made it easy. You made it look easy. But there's a few things that ran through your mind up until this point, right? You know that Ahri, after reacting to that wave, is highly likely want to go mid to defend the tower, right?
Yep.
Because she's thinking you're going to go group with the team. So you know what she's going to do, and you're only able to think about that in that little lull period lull state where you weren't doing anything, right? You weren't farming, you weren't fighting, whatever. So you're able to think holistically about what that Ahri was trying to do. So same thing applies to objectives. If you know dragons coming up in a minute, highly likely they're going to be trying to catch a side, then move to the play. That's your time to really plan out your next move. How the hell am I going to get this guy? So it does require time. And look, this is you shouldn't be thinking about this until, you know, at least 30, 40 games deep. You know, you're just not going to have the mental stack to do it. So that's also something I just wanted to know.
Another big topic that's been going on with LeBlanc, and why people really find a hard champion sometimes, is that they don't know how to play from behind. And yes, it can be very difficult to play LeBlanc from behind, but there's definitely ways to make her work because her kit really allows her to do so. Also, we're just going to go straight into the examples, and we're going to dive deeper into it. All right, so in this VOD, you can see me, I'm 2.5, I'm not doing too keen on the CS as well, so I'm pretty behind in general. If you're behind on LeBlanc, that means that usually you're not that strong in the 1v1, but there's still a lot of champions and that can't really do anything against you. Usually melees, you can outplay them in any kind of way with your mobility.
Yeah, so it's a misconception straight away. If you're, you know, obviously 2 and 5 into another mage, highly likely that you're not going to get pressure. But if you're into a melee, right?
Yeah.
Because your kit is so good into a lot of melees, you can kite them out. It's still completely fine.
Yeah, exactly. And what comes with that is that's a way to get back into the game yourself. But you can also do a lot to help your team, especially when you're behind. You really want to try to create plays with your team. Try to see if you can play for a win condition and create plays around that win condition. There's also multiple things that you can do to disrupt the enemy. For example, in this case, you can stall a lot of time. You can be very annoying because they still gotta care for your threat. If they face check you, if AD carry faces you, they still have a high chance to die. And it just generates a lot of threat. Also, the mindset is kind of similar compared to when you're ahead on LeBlanc. The thing that's kind of different is that preferably you want to do stuff around your win condition or around your team. Alone, you're a bit weaker.
So here you actually decided, because your Aphelios is actually pretty strong and you can actually kite out a lot of their champions, like the Jax who's diving in, sorry.
Yep.
You decided that you could actually win the front to back, and you didn't have the luxury of getting to the objective early and making some form of chunk, right? So
yep,
you were kind of sometimes in this case actually forced to play the front to back. But because your Aphelios is not too bad, you end up being able to kind of win this fight in the back end. So you did a really, really good job of creating space for the Aphelios. So I actually want to go back and highlight a few more things here. I want you to go back even when you got chased by that Jinx. So I think there's a really, really interesting point here. Is that Yeah, back, like here. So here, right, this, if you pause there, right, there's two options, right? You could actually, now that you killed the Drax, shove out the side lane and then make them want to chase you, right? Because if people try to chase LeBlanc, they're just, it's like chasing Singe. You're not gonna get anything. And you can actually sometimes turn around and kill them with chains, right? So there's that, right? You utilizing your mobility. But here, this actually kind of reminds you of the whole chunk and then waste their time. And he ended up clearing the wave. They ended up wasting all this time, which coincidentally, you saved the tier 2 and you probably disrupted their reset timers.
Yep.
Right? And that's massive. And so you're utilizing your mobility here to create space for your team. Now, ideally, if Dragon's coming out, right, you probably would want to get to the objective early. Like you said, maybe set up a bush camp and maybe chunk someone. But in this case, you didn't really have that luxury, right? You were quite low. You had to reset. You didn't have any C-pods. So because of this, you were forced to then play the front to back. So notice how what I'm seeing is that there's a lot, like you said, a lot of similarities between playing from behind and ahead. You still want to look for the same things. You still want to look for the man advantage picks. You still want to look for members that you can kite out. You still want to, if you do have a Fed AD carry, facilitate your Fed AD carry. And then still look for those bush camps, right? Getting to objectives early. If they come into you, great, take it. Just get the free kill.
Yeah, exactly. And that basically summarizes the mindset that you want to have if you play LeBlanc from behind. There's a few...
Sorry, Tim, but one thing I forgot to mention here is also the key distinction though when you're ahead is that you have more options in the 1v1. So in the if you're in the mid game and you're a Fed LeBlanc, no one can. I mean, a lot of people can't really match you, and you're going to get pressure by yourself. When you're behind as LeBlanc, you need other people around you a lot of the time. You need your jungler to your team there, or your jungler to hov you, or whatever it might be. This is one thing I just wanted to know.
Exactly, and that of course ties back to the special mindset. There's a few things that that's important to keep a note of when you play LeBlanc when you're behind. It's just as important not to die when you're behind than it is as when you're ahead. Because if you fall behind as LeBlanc and you die, you're going to fall even further behind and it's even harder to get back. And it snowballs very, very quickly on this champion. So for the matchup tier list of LeBlanc, this matchup tier list is super interesting because it's very subjective. And
Reddit's gonna love this one, Tim. Watch out, they're gonna get you.
Oh yeah,
the LeBlanc subreddit, they're gonna come in and roast you.
Yeah, I'm scared as hell. Yeah, it's gonna be bad for my reputation.
But, you're done.
Yeah, I'm out. First and last guy. Unlucky. But yeah, it's subjective, and this is what I experience as LeBlanc. And it's not only subjective, but it's also not 100% of the information. Because LeBlanc is not a 1v1 champion. It doesn't stop at the 1v1. She's super good in the 2v2, and she really flourishes when other champions are with her.
Let's give an example, right? Let's go back. Just quickly go back to the tier. Let's give an example, right? Like you've got Even in here, right? I know from my experience, if I'm playing Vex into LeBlanc, and the Vex is paired. I'm paired with. Say I'm Vex in this situation. I'm paired with like an Evelynn or a Shyvana jungle or something. Just a low threat jungler in the early game, and then the LeBlanc is paired with a Lee Sin or a Rek'Sai or a Jarvan or whatever it might be. Who the hell am I going to use my fear on? Am I going to hold my fear for the LeBlanc, or am I going to hold my fear for the Rek'Sai tunnel? Am I going to hold it for the Lee Sin Q, or am I going to hold it for the LeBlanc W? I don't know. So in those matchups, LeBlanc actually gets pressure. It's very difficult for me to prevent LeBlanc from getting pressure. And that I wouldn't even say it's even at all. I would say it's definitely favored towards LeBlanc in that situation. Many of these matchups are completely dependent. They're all completely dependent on the jungler. That it's even the toughest one here, the Victor, right? One of the toughest matchups for LeBlanc in the 1v1. The same thing. If you're paired with a Lee Sin and then the LeBlanc, the Victor's paired with a Shyvana or something like that,
day and night difference.
Or a Nidalee, it's day and night difference, So it's something very, very important. And that's why we always got to caveat this. Matchup tier lists are largely BS, right? And take everything with a grain of salt.
Yep, exactly. But definitely do keep in mind, if you're in a 1v1, it definitely can be of some use because you're going to struggle against Akshan.
That's
and
for
also
sure.
against Victor. Usually junglers play around LeBlanc, or you play around the junglers. You can also incentivize them to do so. What I do at the start of game, I just ask them, play around me. If they don't, then I try to play around them. It's our strengths, and
Don't
that's
be
why you want to
afraid
aim
to
for.
ping.
No,
Don't
not at
be
all.
afraid to ping. And we see
Be
it all the
brutal.
time in our coaching sessions, right?
Yeah.
People are like, oh my god, I want to be that low. I want to be that low econ in a way. That very
Facilitator.
yeah, they want to be that facilitator. It's like, I'm scared to
Yeah.
call for assistance because I'm not the carrier in a way, or they feel as though they're helping the team by not being a nuisance.
Yep.
No, by pinging that you've got the way frozen on your side into an Annie, and the Annie has no flash, or the Annie does have flash, and you've got any jungler that is somewhat has decent gank threat, you're helping the jungler. You're giving that jungler an option, right? So like, don't think of it in terms of like, oh, he's gonna get annoyed at me pinging. No, you're giving him an option. You're making his life easier. At least he knows when he looks at midway's in a beautiful spot. You're pinging assistance, great, because it's highly likely gonna work. So communication and pinging and telling your team what you want is crucial when you're playing LeBlanc.
For some examples about what she does like and what she doesn't like in her own team in draft. First of all, what complements her? Follow up, engage, multi-threat, preferably AD. Like, these are killer champions with LeBlanc. If you see this in draft, I'm gonna smile if I look in LeBlanc. I'm happy. On the contrary, stuff like Karthus, Fiddlesticks, Shyvana, it's very hard to play
Yeah.
with.
And
With
for multiple
Shyvana,
reasons, like double AP,
yep,
mid jungle. I
yep,
mean, everyone's going to stack MR, and then obviously they have very little gank threat. And the
yep.
one thing that jumps out to me here is Pike, dude. I love it. I've been on the
It's
receiving
beautiful.
end of LeBlanc Pike.
Yeah.
Holy moly, that is.
You
If
have
you're
no
playing a champ
game.
that doesn't have mobility, it's end of review. It's
Yeah.
like you see Pike LeBlanc and I'm playing Oriana or something. It's game's done, dude. Like, I don't
Yeah,
want to play that
we
game.
could go to the next review.
Yeah, let's go next.
It's fine. Yeah. Yeah, and that's also contrary with the supports. Stuff like Sona, you're gonna have a very rough time with
Yeah,
ganking
no
bots
threat.
super hard. No threat, no roaming potential.
All
It's
goes both ways, right? Your threat onto their lane,
yep,
but also more importantly, their threat onto your lane.
yep, goes both
Support
ways.
roams threading onto mid. It increases your threat range by a massive amount.
Yeah.
Massive amount.
In the enemy team, there's also a lot of stuff that she does and doesn't like. Starting off with what she does like, it's very straightforward, melee, squishy champions. If we see on top lane, very straightforward champions or squishy, can kite around with the mobility. In the jungle, likewise, quite squishy and straightforward. And on the ADC, like, whenever it doesn't build shield bow, or a lot of magic resist, you're pretty much already set to do something.
Or no, main ones that I'm seeing here, there's no mobility. Jhin, Ashe,
Yeah,
Twitch, no
yeah,
mobility.
exactly. No mobility indeed. Like, they're food for you, especially when you're ahead. Same for supports. Super squishy, super free. You can catch them out anytime they overstep, and that happens a lot. So what does she dislike? There's a lot of stuff that LeBlanc somewhat dislikes, and she has multiple ways to play around it, always. But there is some stuff that she rather not plays against. For example, huge split push. A Sion, super tanky. She can't win the 1v1. Waves are getting pushed all the time, and she can't stop the pressure on the side lane. Also, interrupt. Poppy W, you can't actively use your W, so you lose one spell of your kit. Same with Lulu, super annoying. Shields the people that you want to assassinate. CCs you for 2 seconds. In the meantime, you die. And
Lulu's a
ADCs that,
nightmare, man, for any
yeah,
assassin.
yeah, it's very hard to play against. And for example, ADCs with mobility that can avoid your dashes, avoid your abilities, but also survive in a way. She really struggles against that if you don't play around it correctly.
Now let's dive into how to counter LeBlanc. A very common question, probably one of the most common questions we had for this guide. And I think there's a few important concepts you need to understand when countering LeBlanc. Now, the first one, obvious one, is hard CC. LeBlanc hates hard CC, especially when it comes from multiple sources. Generally, I mean, feel free to disagree with this one, Tim, but if LeBlanc is versing only maybe one form of hard CC, or maybe like one champion that has hard CC, It's generally not a big deal. It's only when LeBlanc is dealing with multiple forms of hard CC that I think her game gets very difficult. Would you tend to agree with that or not? Or does it?
Yeah, I mean, one form of hard CC, it's very easy to look out for, but whenever there's multiple CC threats onto you, you got to be very careful with
Yeah.
the timing of doing stuff.
Yeah,
Definitely.
and then so champs like Lysandra, for obvious reasons, are metric on a 5cc. Same thing as Lulu with the polymorph, Poppy with the W interrupt. That's why things like Everfrost can actually be really annoying for additional chain CC. These are all things that really make LeBlanc's life a living hell. Another really, this is actually one of the second one, Wave Clear. When I was originally coaching LeBlanc and tried to play LeBlanc myself, I completely underestimated how annoying high wave clear champions are to verse. A quick story: I actually started to play LeBlanc, right, and this was I think it was like a month ago, and I played a game of LeBlanc, and it was very early on in my LeBlanc journey, and I played against a Yone, and I thought on paper, great, I'm into a melee. Generally, LeBlanc is very good into melees, and I think I got a lead. I think I was 2-0 or something like that. And then I started to roam, right? I started to try and translate my lead and get things done. Every single time I tried to roam, Yone was shoving out that wave ASAP. I think I made one mistake in the side then, and then he got like 2 or 3 plates, and then I was like, wow, this is like, I feel really pressured. I feel like I'm stuck because I can't roam, and his wave clear is so goddamn good. And so after that game, I went out and I said, Tim, is Yone meant to be a good matchup or not? It felt really hard. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. And he said, no, that actually is not an easy matchup because Yona has a lot of wave clear. And I thought about it and like it makes a lot of sense. And it ties into a concept where champs like LeBlanc, like Fizz, and any champ that, even Silas to a certain degree, that have to like use their offense as defense or offense for wave clear, like LeBlanc W, that's your key trading ability and your key wave clear ability. Fizz with the E, your key trading ability and your key wave clear ability. If you're forced to make a choice between trading or playing for the wave, it's very, very difficult. And so if I were to use my W on the Yone, he stands outside the wave. Yone just heals off the wave with like a Vamp Scepter, one shots the wave, and then I'm forced to react to the wave, and it feels really, really pressuring. Anything to chime in on there, Tim?
Yeah, that basically is all on wave clear. Also, LeBlanc struggles against survivability. She doesn't have any max health damage in her kit. Also, her cooldowns are pretty high. So, tanks, shields, she kind of struggles with. Also, immense split push. For example, a Scion. If a Scion gets ahead and he's just splitting on the side, LeBlanc's not going to be able to do a whole lot against him. He's too tanky to kill. He's too slippery and too strong to do something about it, and he does so much damage to the towers for LeBlanc to feel happy about.
Yeah. And rather than going on too much here, let's just dive into a few clips and we'll show you what it's like to
Yep.
deal with these sorts of things.
So in this example, we can see interrupt. I get grounded by Poppy W, and it's very hard for me to play this fight.
Can you play that
We
one again?
showed.
Let's play this one a
Yep.
few times. So you're coming in from the side, Poppy's in the skirmish. Poppy then uses the W. You get like cancelled. So the W damage doesn't even go off, does it?
But for
Does it
me,
go off?
no, it doesn't go off.
No. Okay.
And I got grounded as well, so I can't use my W back, and I'm basically stuck.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Wow. That's like that. Yeah. So it's actually like miasma, Cassio
Yeah,
miasma. Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
So
I
even
mean,
with
that's just one of them as well. Imagine if you had two of them. In this case, it's kind of like the Janna as well, isn't it? I mean, it was like a kind of
yeah,
like a displace as well as like a ground.
yeah, exactly. And in this next clip, we can see the special mindset where we're chilling in the bush, and enemy AD carry has Cried of the Shattered Queen, so I can one-shot her. And this basically makes sure that my identity is way harder to pull off in this case.
And especially when you spend all that time trying to get yourself into a good position,
Yep.
people may think, oh, like Crown isn't that good of a counter to LeBlanc because she can get in and out. But at the same time, you are getting a lot of information about LeBlanc's whereabouts, and now you know where she is. So she spent all that time trying to get herself into a good position. She doesn't take that opportunity to get the one shot. So yes, it's not a direct counter, but it is quite annoying, I would say.
Yeah, exactly. And the most annoying part right here, I'm playing as the Lysandra. She has a lot of CC, and in this skirmish, basically, I can't W in ever because the amount of threat that she has with her R, with her W. So I have to stay on range. I can't really play the fights that I like to play. And after this, I make a small mistake. I get too greedy, and I just get instantly CC'd up and lose the game for my team by this play alone. So one more thing to add in how to counter. In lane, try to hold the wave on your side, so LeBlanc gank setup is not that efficient. Also, you can tether out her W, stay out of her range, in of her range, and make her bait it so she misses it. You can also take extended trades by moving into her whenever she Ws. This extends the trades. LeBlanc doesn't have too many cooldowns, and you can get a good quality trade-off. Also, by clearing her vision, it makes it pretty hard for LeBlanc to get the right angle around the team fight, the right positioning. And by placing deep vision into LeBlanc's jungle, you can spot her out wherever she's going to ambush you. And this makes it very hard to really pull off the Psyops mindset. LeBlanc has a few hard lanes that will be picked into her. These are the lanes that I've played most on LeBlanc, and this is a kind of cheat sheet of how you can play these lanes. So basically, the runes are explanatory here. They're pretty important in the matchups. I really like these runes. It's preferential. I think if you find better results with different runes, you can also go for this. But I think these runes are pretty key to this matchup. To note out a few points, I like starting with or like putting 2 points in Q in the Vex and in the Lissandra matchup. Why is because we're not really using our W as damage right there. So putting that additional point in Q kind of increases our trading damage. While we don't lose as much, it's a bit of a mobility thing that we lose, but it's definitely worth because this gives a bit more back and punch in the trading. Also, with Lissandra, just get mercs, you need it. And with Vex, there's you can go mercs, you can go sorks. What I like to go is I like to go sorks whenever I'm ahead, and I like to go mercs whenever I'm behind or whenever there's a lot of AP threat in the enemy team.
And to add on to this, actually, I got a few questions here about summoners.
Mm-hmm.
So in the Lissandra one, you've said TP or cleanse.
Yep.
So what? How do you determine between the both of them?
So usually I would go for TP because I'm already getting a lot of tenacity.
Yeah, you
But
got unflinching and you get mercs.
yeah, exactly. But whenever the enemy has a fiddlesticks or another champion with a lot of CC, that cleanse can be super beneficial against. Cleanse is pretty good because this allows you to be a bit more aggressive in lane, be a bit more aggressive in the team fights because you kind of got your your go out button ready on your cleanse, so it makes your team fighting a bit more forgiving.
Right. And what about
And
Vex? Because to add on to
mhm,
this, because I play a lot of Vex, in my experience, I actually think it's harder to verse a LeBlanc that goes TP,
mhm,
in my opinion. Because like I
yeah,
think Vex is a lot of Vexes will also take Ignite because they
mhm.
want that additional kill threat, and TP makes it very difficult. What are your thoughts on that? What do you tend to go?
Into Vex, it's pretty actually dependent on the enemy team.
Right.
So if I really want to play for lane and want to play to kill Vex, I go for Ignite. But if I see some opportunities on the side lanes, and if I really want to play for tempo, for efficiency, I go for TP. That will mean that my kill threat in lane is way less. Same actually with Victor, especially into Victor because he has a lot of poke threat onto you into lane. If you really try to kill him early, go for Ignite. If you play for tempo, efficiency, side lanes, go for TP.
Does that even I mean, look, I think at the highest level into Victor,
Mm-hmm.
there's no way you would. I mean, I think it's highly unlikely you would go Ignite, right? I feel like you would only
Yeah,
go Ignite maybe if you have a hardcore ganking jungler, or
yeah,
maybe you're in lower elo brackets. I think the higher you get, the more you're gonna need TP. Funnily
yeah.
enough, out of all these matchups, Victor is the hardest. I think. Would you agree with that or not?
So in the
Like at the
isolated
highest
one,
level.
at the highest level, if you're against a godlike Victor, he's gonna fuck you up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it's gonna be very hard.
Yeah,
Um,
but it has way less 2v2 threats. So Lissandra has
yeah,
probably weaker laning, but it's harder to verse in mid game. Whereas
yeah,
Victor's like the hardest to verse in the early lane, but has worse mid game. So
yeah,
it's
exactly.
interesting. But yeah, these are really good tips, and I think that if anyone has any questions about whatever they see on this slide, I think put that in the description below, and we'll try and reply to that
Yeah,
because there's a lot of
definitely.
great stuff here.
Moving on to the game reviews. So we're gonna start off with Rice. We're gonna look at the early lane. It's in my experience, not an easy matchup because of its amount of wave clear. But due to good trading and calling the jungler, we actually make sure the matchup is pretty easy. Then we're going to look at a review against Akali, where I fuck up some trades in the early game and I kind of disable my jungler in a way, and how to play the game from there, and what to do when you are behind, or especially when your team is behind. Then we're going on to Ari game, how to throw games on LeBlanc, and especially how not to. You can throw games very easily on LeBlanc, and it's good that you have an example of how to not throw a game, because it spirals out of control really fast if you fuck up. Then at last we're going to look at a Sion game where I'm against a Sion mid lane. Very interesting champion. I don't have a lot of kill threat onto him on my own. So in this game, we're going to look at translating leads. How do I move to the side lanes? We're going to look at E accuracy, and also efficiency is a good one to look out for. But we're going to start with the Ryze one first. So we're starting off against the Ryze. We're going to look at the early lane, and I've opted in for a secondary resolve with unflinching because Ryze has some nice CC. What I do is I go for the QW out, or the auto attack W auto attack trade, to get a nice quality trade off onto Ryze. So the main key in this matchup is to make use of my electrocute cooldown to get good quality trades onto him. Ryze has a lot of strengths in his wave clear, and to really make sure that I play towards my strengths is that I make sure that I trade whenever it's in my benefit. What Ryze has an advantage over me by doing extended trades, so I just want to go for quick bursty trades, preferably.
Where do you want the wave exactly?
So in this game, I opted in for a push slash in the middle, because I don't want to be pushed in against a Ryze. If I'm pushed in against the Ryze, I'm really going to struggle. Also going to struggle finding my trade opportunities. And if it's in the middle, I can trade whenever I want, and I can call my jungler for whenever I get my E up. So that's basically what I'm.
So neutral is kind of like your go-to wave state, unless you're actively trying to pull ganks. Because if you were to try and like this, it can get very dangerous very quickly because Ryze has such good wave clear. And you're kind of matching, so you're using your autos kind of in reference to how much he's hitting the wave. You're trying to match damage on the wave in a way. If he starts hitting the wave, you're going to start hitting the wave more as well.
Yeah.
And go for those high value Ws.
Yeah, exactly. And especially in a matchup like this, where it's pretty hard to win in the 1v1, just call my jungler, I communicate with him, set up a gank with the wave, and Ryze flashes down. Right here, we can really see the strength of LeBlanc, because Ryze wave is in a bad position, and he's got no flash, he's forced back, and there's nothing that he can do about his current wave due to my insane amount of threat. He can't clear it. I bully him off. He knows Xin Zhao is in the area, and he's just gotta sack the most amount of CS.
Yeah, and this is why LeBlanc is paired so well with these gank-oriented champions like a Xin Zhao.
Yeah.
And let's say hypothetically you didn't have a Xin Zhao in this game, you would probably play the waves a little bit similarly, right? You would still probably hold the wave somewhat of a neutral position, and then trying to look for short trades. But you would probably just have to have a slower lane and play more patiently, right?
Yeah.
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 So walk me through this one. What happened here?
So Cartus came to help Ryze with the wave, which is understandable because else it's going to be here for eternity. And here's a slight miscommunication with my jungler. We wanted to go to kill them right here, but we had different target selection. I think if we
so you wanted to go for the Ryze because he had no flash, and Xin wanted to go for the Karthus because he was pretty overshoved. Okay.
Yeah.
The premise is still the same. The wave's in a really awkward spot. Their jungler's forced to come here. And even if theoretically your Xin wasn't around here, you're forcing the enemy jungler to like waste time to help break the freeze anyway. So it's a win-win regardless.
Exactly. And Ryze shares XP, which is huge for me. When I get the
Yeah,
XP lead,
massive.
Rise is going to be in big trouble.
And
All right.
out of interest, like with the whole
Mhm.
summoners here, because you went TP, and is it a good rule of thumb to have, or would you agree with this as a rule of thumb? When you're versing high wave clear laners, you
Mhm.
generally need TP.
Yeah, if you need to be on tempo, need to be efficient, and not fall behind in CS, TP is generally a very
Right.
good choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so we come back to lane, we catch the wave, and right now we got a slight XP lead, which is huge for us. XP lead, whenever you're able to get that, that means our trades are going to be very favored to us. So we can
And you're gonna
already
get
see,
level 6 first, which is so big.
yeah, yeah, it is. And also our base damage on our abilities is pretty high, and we can just bully Rise of the Wave by this small advantage that we get, and trade towards our electrocute, and he really struggles at this moment on. So what would be theoretically a bad matchup, you can kind of already see that whenever we're in the lead, it already gets way better, and we just trade around our cooldowns, around our E.
Right. Yeah. Just constantly looking at heavy trade, and these trades. I mean, you're happy to heavy trade here because you've got a nice stacked wave. So
Mm-hmm.
even if you were to heavy trade, you can always just tempo reset off these sorts of situations anyway. But you know you have the level 6 first, so this is definitely benefiting you.
Yeah, exactly. And about these trades, why do I go for this trading pattern? So I W in because it's a bit longer range than starting with Q first. And when I hit my W, I tend to go for the E. And once I hit the E, I know I can uh, commit my other abilities on the trade to get the most amount of damage instead of just instantly jumping back. So I
Right.
start
Yeah.
with E in this case to secure a good trade. And right here, Rise is no flash. He's just a victim of priority of the game, and this makes it super easy for me to get a good quality reset. I opted for a lost chapter right here instead of going for boots because I really want to match his wave clear. So
Right. Yeah.
I think it's more important to go for this AP and to go for this wave clear instead of going for boots or
Yeah.
any other
I think we spoke about this
item.
in the itemization section,
Yeah,
right? Where like if you're versing low wave clear, you can go for the sorks. But yeah, into these high wave clear champs, you definitely need that AP and
yep,
mana as well. To be honest.
yeah, exactly.
Now, what's your mindset like in this situation? Obviously, Rise still has a lot of wave clear. Now,
Hmm.
you don't have TP. So, what's your mindset? Are you still looking at heavy trade, or what are you trying to get done?
Yeah, so I'm basically trying the heavy trade whenever my W is possible and I see an opportunity. And at this moment onward, I want to starve Rise and make it as hard as possible for Rise to play the game, but also try to get myself as fat as possible and look for opportunities where I enable my team or my jungle to play the game.
I love how you're just constantly slow building waves. It's so big.
Yeah, it's very hard for him to deal with. And the pressure that I have on mid lane, like it just goes to jungle because my Xin Zhao can just invade right now whenever he
Yep.
wants. Um,
I'm surprised you don't trade there. See here, I'm surprised if you go back. I'm surprised you don't actually just go for a double distortion on Rise's face there. Actually,
yeah, I understand. The reason why I didn't is because we got a pretty good angle to dive top here.
okay, okay,
Yeah, so I just wanted to hold my R,
big brain.
check out what's going on here,
Right, yeah.
and look at the opportunities.
Because if top was diveable, then yeah, you if you didn't have your ult, then you probably couldn't have that as an option.
Yeah, it's a pretty big threat.
And now you know 100% you're not playing for the roam, so you just take the short
Yep,
trade. Yeah,
exactly. Even while I miss my E, it's
yeah.
completely fine. I
And
just
this
sit
actually
right.
goes to show like the quality of the trade is so different when you land your E. And again, we spoke about that before. Again,
Mm-hmm.
the importance of landing E's. I think it's important for the viewers. If the viewers are going to take one thing away, I know we went deep on E accuracy, but like when you're playing lane and you're getting into the review, it's important that you don't get blasé with your E usage. You need to make sure that you're holding yourself to a high standard with your E usage.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, it's just this little side note there.
it's very easy to look over it as well. Like you really
Yeah, it's
need
like,
to
oh,
to
whatever,
have
I'm
these.
ahead anyway, or something like
Yeah,
that. You know.
exactly. All right, so we come back for a quick little reset. We get some more AP to get some more access to the wave.
And he's
Um,
even got mercs at this stage.
Yeah, he's probably got mercs,
He
and
rushed it, yeah.
um, so whatever another rule of thumb is for me is whenever the enemy gets mercs, instead of going sorks, it's also better to go AP because of this access to the wave, and
Right.
it has less kill threat due to him buying mercs already.
Right, and flat pen just isn't good into
Yeah,
MR anyway, right?
yeah, exactly. So right here, I'm just trading very, very clean, very fast combo. I get this minion right here, get it low. I jump onto it, I hit an E, and I get a good quality trade on.
So you're always looking for which casters are low because that's going to allow you to see when they're exposed to the potential WE combo.
Yeah, exactly. And it's very hard to constantly respect that. As we can see, Rise's wave clear is starting to pin me down under the tower a little bit. It's making my game a bit harder. I have to use my abilities on the wave.
Yeah, that's actually one thing, a really good thing to highlight. Even though Rise has died, he's not really like he doesn't seem like he's getting overly. He's still farming like relatively well, and that just
Yeah,
goes to show because that's the strength of Rise of these high wave clear champs.
yeah, exactly. All right, I got myself in a good position in lane now though. Hit a E, QR trade, a lot of damage on
Beautiful.
him.
Aggressive R users, not afraid to use R unless
Yep.
you need it for an immediate skirmish, which you don't in this situation. Looking for the WEQR combo. And one thing I got to highlight here, you're using a lot of abilities on the wave, both for wave clear and last hitting, and I think it's a
Mm-hmm.
really important note. A lot of people panic when it comes to like using abilities on wave. But it's all the LeBlanc fundamentals here. Using R
Yep.
aggressively in lane, going for high value abilities, not and to actually shove and trade. That's actually one of an interesting learning. I did a LeBlanc review recently, and a tendency I've noticed with LeBlanc players when I coach them is that they get into this mindset where it's like I'm either playing for trades or I'm playing for wave. But as LeBlanc, you always need to be doing both. You need to be trading and going for high value abilities on the wave, like you've been doing, you
Yeah.
did there. You just go for the AoE, you auto attack the backline, then you W, and then you fish your chains, Q, and then you disengage. You're getting the best of both worlds.
Yeah, exactly. Especially into high wave clear matchups, using that W for the wave and for trading is it's the key to surviving slash playing that matchup.
Oh,
Nice little
Tim,
skirmish
bit
around mid.
sloppy on the E there.
It's very very sloppy. I know. I was like, oh, I can't do this review because people are gonna call me out for it. But yeah, but still,
Lovely. So that, I mean, by the way, that flash
yeah.
for flash is not worth it whatsoever for Rise.
No, exactly,
This
exactly.
is really not good. Like, this is a Cardinals, and if you're versing LeBlanc, you don't want to do that
No, you
at
you,
all.
you don't want to do this. And this is also information I give to my jungler. Rice goes for the flash to flash. We trade dragon, and now in my head I'm already thinking, all right, how can I set up the next gank? How can we use this use this waste of flash for our advantage? So push the wave. I get some good quality vision. I know I can do a whole lot against trash at the moment.
Now, are you ever thinking about secondary win cons or anything like that, or or identifying your winning side, or are you more just
Yeah.
focused on the 1v1? What's going through your mind?
So what's going through my mind right now? First of all, I'm looking at the team comp, right? I think if we look at team comp, we got a pretty going in team comp, and I know for a fact that Kai'Sa Nautilus is a very very strong lane, um, and I know it is very gankable if they're exposed, but if they're not exposed, Caitlyn Trash, it's hard to gank even with a Kai'Sa Nautilus.
Right. Okay.
And I know my jungler. I've got the most playing room with my jungler this game because it's a skirmisher. He can invade. Our 2v2 is way stronger. So that's basically the thing that I'm focusing on this game.
Right. So you're looking at the volatility of the side lanes. You think bot is
Yep.
harder to kill, both
Yep.
because Xin Zhao seems to be pathing topside a lot, and bot lane just being hard to gank in general.
Yeah.
Like it's a Caitlyn Thresh. They have a lot of escape, a lot of mobility. Whereas top, it's a lot more exposed, and easier to gank. Is what you're
Yeah.
saying.
Exactly.
Okay.
And Caitlyn Trash is just impossible to kill unless it's
Right.
it's
Yeah.
a dive with 4 people.
Yeah. And it's even
Exactly.
hard to stack waves into a Kate Thresh because they can thin waves from a distance so well.
Yeah, it is indeed. So right here, um, I'm setting up the gank. Um, we know Ryze has no flash. Volt is a bit laggy, sadly. Um,
Yep, we're looking at a slideshow here, but that's okay. We get the gist.
yep,
Thinning the wave, making sure we kill the casters with the W, fishing for that E. This is able to follow
and
up pretty
and he
easily.
dies. Yep. And basically from this moment on, uh, we get so much pressure. I get my Ludens, and it's end of review at
Yep,
this
end
point.
of review.
Yep.
Just to recap, I think the learnings of this one, a few things that when people are watching this, they may say, "Oh, this looks like an easy, anyone could have done that." There's a lot of little things that went into this. There was a lot of good quality tempo resets, so you were staying healthy in lane and making sure that you were ready to fight and trade with the Rise. You weren't
Yep.
afraid to heavy trade with your C-pots, going
Yep.
for matching autos in the early game to make sure you're not getting perma shoved in. High value abilities on the wave, both for trading and matching the wave clear. Aggressive R usage to make sure you're not holding on to it, but also being cognizant of your R usage if a potential roam opportunity is happening, right? That's
Yep.
another high level concept. And then a communication of no sums mid to make sure that the jungler's constantly keeping an eye on the volatility of mid lane, and then obviously the E accuracy, thinning of the range creeps to make sure they're exposed to the E. These are all the LeBlanc fundamentals we've been talking throughout this guide that is pretty exemplified in this clip. It's a lot of the basic, boring things done really well.
Yeah.
That's what
Exactly.
makes a good LeBlanc.
Yeah. Exactly. And to reiterate, like the main thing that allowed me to play this way was me communicating with Xin Zhao, for him to be around my mid lane, for him to take the Rise flash, for him to booty the Rise off. Like those things can create you leads in game, and it makes your life so much easier. So in the second review, we're looking at a LeBlanc versus Akali. And to start off, I'm starting off with D-Ring in this game. Against certain assassins slash melee champions, you can start with D-Ring because they don't really have too much access trading back onto you. It gives you a bit more HP survivability. It lets you hit your power spikes early, and you're going to hit a bit more CS due to the early increase in base damage. It's just a tad bit easier. Opting for C-Pot would also be fine. Um, so that's about the setup that I took this game. What's in this game that really bugged me when I look back at it is that I went for a 2-stack crash. I think in hindsight I should have went for a 3-stack crash, and it would have been I would have had a bit more angles to actually bully the Akali. Although I did want the wave on my side as soon as possible with a Nunu, but I don't really get the trades that I want to take. Like she's
Yeah.
got the same amount of trades onto me. That's not
You'd
good.
get way better trades if you did a 3-stack.
Yep.
But unfortunately, it looks like, I mean, like you said, the one big benefit of doing a 2-stack here is that the wave is going to be back out onto your side pretty early on, and you do
Yep.
have a Nunu, so it does have a pretty significant benefit. So we'll see what happens. It really depends, right? I'm
Yep.
usually on the side of if you can 3-stack, it is good to do, but that's just preference at the end of the day.
Yeah. Exactly. So our Nunu's getting invaded. Um, I kind of wanted to move, but I saw bot prior, so it wasn't a good decision. And I tend to opt in for the trade slash the all-in on Akali, which I don't win actually, and that's pretty bad for me because I lose both sums. Akali only loses ignite, and this is a pretty big bummer for my lane. And I think I could have played it a bit better by actually guiding out Akali a bit more, and maybe I would be able to kill her because she doesn't have flash. But I managed not to do that, and that's a pretty big part of my threat onto her already gone.
Yeah, and look at this. The wave's now bouncing out. You're finding it really hard to thin it because the wave's so goddamn big. Nunu's
Yep,
not able to come by mid because he's been invaded as well. And
yep,
Akali's able to TP back, and now you're sitting in lane with no pots, and you're in a really rough spot.
yep, exactly. And I
And
don't
this
really have
is
anything to tell at the moment.
yeah, and this is the danger of taking ignite and failing lane. You know,
Yep,
if you're taking TP, it's kind of like a get out of jail free card. But in this matchup, if I mean, it's actually kind of unacceptable, really, to get behind or make a mistake in the early
Yeah,
lane versus an Akali as LeBlanc. Like, you're taking Ignite, you have the advantage. If you make a mistake, you're going to get very hard punished by it. Now, you end
yeah,
up taking a really nice quality tempo reset. You accept reality that the wave is bouncing out, but it was the best thing you could do in this situation.
yeah,
It's a
exactly.
cannon.
Exactly. So this is basically my only hope. I get a
Yeah.
refillable, which I really need due to
Yeah.
the fact that I really like to heavy trade. Um, Now the wave is slow pushing into Akali. This does mean that I don't really have too much gank threat onto her, but maybe I
Mhm.
can get going for a decent quality trade. Although I am pretty scared because I don't really have that much threat onto her.
No.
Like,
She can use her E reactively to your
yeah,
W as well. She has Shroud. She's holding onto our Shroud. You're actually having to use your abilities quite conservatively, especially when you don't have Flash here.
yeah, exactly. And this already opts in for a pretty hard lane.
Yeah.
Now my top laner gets 1v2'd,
Mm.
so that's a win con less. And my bot lane is against the Draven, which they're also not that doing that well against.
Can
So
we take a
it's
look at this trade as well, by the way, before we go on to
yeah,
side lanes? I want to take a look at this trade here. So is it do you end up opting in for this trade because she ended up using Q on the wave and she didn't have much energy?
yeah, yeah. The
Right.
reason why I went for trade is because she had low energy indeed.
Okay, got you.
But I missed my E, which made sure I even lost the trade.
Yeah. So yeah, so your top end up losing that one, which is really not good. So what's your
Yep.
mindset at this stage? Are you trying to farm to Lost Chapter? Are you trying to get to a Mythic? You're trying to think about a winning side? You're trying to call for ganks? Like what are we thinking here?
So at this moment, I think I was making my mind up about what would be the good way of playing. I
Mm.
was kind of in a sticky situation. My
Yeah.
side lanes were doing too well, and I'm like, all right, how are we gonna win this? My first response is always, okay, it's gonna be me myself. I gotta focus on myself, because when I'm healthy and when I'm able to have some pressure in the lane and do stuff, I can convert this to side lanes. Although in this case, I don't tend to do it that well. I do get some prio, and I do end up roaming bot eventually because we got some form of gank setup together with Nunu.
Okay, so you're looking for in between the waves. You're assessing the side lanes, and again looking at the volatility and
Yep,
where your jungler is actually pathing towards.
yeah, exactly. And as well, Yana doesn't have too much gank setup, but in this case, Nunu does have.
Yeah.
Here again, I miss my E. Maybe we could have killed the Draven with it. We don't know, but it's at least something that you should look back onto in your reviews, because so far I've hit only one E,
Yeah,
which
you've
was
missed
when,
way too many
yeah,
E's in
I've
this
been
game.
missing every single E, and that really costs you in your lane, but also in the side lanes,
Yeah,
opportunity wise.
massively.
All right.
This is a pretty good trade, though. I like these trades here where you take the short trade. I mean, you probably could do a little bit better job of going inside your min wave to potentially avoid the E, but it's kind of hard when she's exposed like that.
Yeah,
But the E to reveal her and then take the auto trade at the end and go for the E1, E2 is actually a pretty good trade.
yeah, exactly. Although at this moment, I feel very, very scared because
Mm.
Akari with R, um, like she can do some mean stuff to me. She can one shot me for full if she hits the entire combo. So I
Mm.
should be very, very careful with getting hit with the E2 and also allowing her to R. So the wave's in a good spot right now, and Nunu is coming. So this is the perfect timing for the gank. But I miss my E again. I let Akali escape, and I just waste Nunu's time completely.
So let's take a look at this E. How would you have changed? How could we have used the E better in this situation? So what do? We W'd on top of her. Say she's actually standing next to a low caster as
Yep,
well.
exactly. And
In this
she E's out.
situation, it's probably. Do you think it's even good to use E, or do you think you should be better off to hold E?
Um, I think I shouldn't have went in at all.
Right, just wait for Nunu, and then
Yeah,
you go after Nunu goes in, because then she's gonna have
yeah,
to E the snowball, and then she leaves herself exposed. Then you can then
yeah,
flash R E. Yeah, 100%.
exactly. And I kind of allow her to escape through her outplaying us in this sense.
Yeah, this is really bad. So at this stage, what are we thinking? Are you still thinking you trying to need to get something done in the 1v1? Or are you thinking, okay, I need to ditch waves and try and create a secondary win con? Or what are you thinking here?
No, right now I'm getting a bit desperate because
Okay.
my jungler is not doing too well.
Yep.
Um,
And obviously
I've
Nunu
wasted
doesn't scale that well.
Yep, I wasted a lot of his time. Both my
Yep.
side lanes are losing in the 1v1.
Yep.
So my mindset right now is to preferably get a lead myself because I'm pretty solid into enemy team. Champion wise, LeBlanc works very well into them. So I'll try to get a lead myself and also try to expand this lead towards the side lane. This means I'll be playing a lot for lane and look for kills in the side lane whenever I get the opportunity. I'm not forcing
Right.
stuff.
Okay. So you're still not forcing, but we're still trying to look for opportunistic trades into the Akali.
Yep.
Baiting out ease. But if she doesn't give you the trade window, you're just going to play for roams.
Yeah, exactly. And
Okay.
in this case, I think I should have called for Dragon or went for bot dive.
I think bot dive is the play right there, honestly. Because Nautilus just showed top there. That was a really exposed Draven.
Yeah, exactly. I think I stuck a bit too much to my lane here.
Because the problem with this game is that we're not even really getting much done into the Akali.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not making we're not really bullying her.
Yeah.
Yes, we're a bit up CS, but does that matter? Not really.
Not really, no.
Not really. So Akali uses her teleport on bot lane. I think I can shove this wave out. I'm too late, and I exposed myself to Akali's all-in. Have to flash, and my wave's also fucked. So this is bad
Yeah,
right here.
worst case scenario right there.
Worst case scenario. Take a
This
bad
game's
reset.
looking really, really hard.
Yeah, it's looking very hard. I'm scared during this game. I'm not happy.
So again, Nunu goes bot side. We're trying to back up our jungler. That seems to be a common trend here, is that you're constantly looking, whenever your jungler's looking for a play, you're also looking for a play just to back them up.
Yeah.
That would get a nice little opportunistic roam bot side. So again, what I've noticed is that you're not, like, you are in a desperate situation, but you're not acting desperate, which is interesting. It's like, you're still not ditching waves, really. Like, you're still being quite conservative in your roams. Like, you're playing in accordance to your jungle's location. Like, a lot of LeBlancs in this situation will try and, like, they'll shit the bed and try and just go crazy, right? Like, roam, go down, like, 2 levels, and then just the game's over. But your CSing still quite well. I mean, 91 CS by 12 minutes is not that bad.
No, that's
not amazing, but it's not that
decent.
bad.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy if I can get these numbers. And that's indeed the main thing that I'm looking for right now is just being efficient, making sure that whenever I make a play, that my play works, going for high quality plays. In this case, with the Nunu.
All right, looks like a bit of a skirmish. They're starting to group up mid. Luckily, you don't get sniped by the Rumble R. So it's still the same thing. I mean, you have very little options proactive-wise. So we're kind of just playing reactive here.
Yeah. Yeah, we are. Especially when the team is behind, it's very hard to be proactive on LeBlanc.
LeBlanc is also the sort of champ, like, if you get behind in levels, oh man, it feels...
It's very hard.
It's a disaster.
Yeah, it is.
All right, so we reset, we come back. And then again, we see heavy trading bot side, and we see our jungler bot side. That's the most important thing here.
Yep, exactly. And we get a pretty decent...
W, beautiful combo. But yeah, he's very sloppy this game. I feel like this is pretty uncharacteristic of you.
Yeah, it is, and that's the main thing that why I also wanted to put up this vote, because I was actually during this game I wasn't that confident. And it's a feeling that you have when playing LeBlanc. If you're not feeling confident in your E, and that's something that I had this game, you're just gonna miss all of them.
Yeah, 100%.
You're just not gonna be useful. It's actually pretty crazy.
Right. Yet again, your passive saving your ass.
Yeah, I needed a lot this game.
You're still very aware of what's happening in the sides, which is good. So you base again, and you're just constantly trying to adapt to plays that are happening in the side lane.
Yep, exactly. I want to get some kills right now, because that's the main way of me getting ahead.
let's take a look at this one here. So you see them pretty overextended, RW, and there's like a flash W, QE. Okay.
Very hard to react to.
Yeah, very hard to react. The flash W is really hard to react to.
Yeah, it is. So we get ourselves a nice kill here. And we get 7 stacks on the Dark Shield because of this.
And a lot of people, by the way, Tim, in this exact situation, maybe they're 3-0, but their entire team's losing. You know, again, a common question. You know, what do I do when I'm ahead, but everyone else is behind? So is your mindset still at this stage? Stay healthy to the best of your ability. Stay strong. Play for your spikes. But you're just looking for action. You're looking for chaos around you, right? You're just opportunistically reacting to things that are happening around you. So instead of here, you split pushing, you're like, okay, I'm going to reset, I'm going to get my lootants, and I'm just going to try and go to the nearest action, essentially, right?
Yep.
You're trying to find a balance between farming, right? Because you can't ditch every single wave because then you're not going to be strong.
Yep, exactly.
But then trying to make sure you're there for plays.
Yeah, my main mentality, my main mindset at this moment is trying to stay healthy, trying to grab some kills and create a man advantage. Because if I'm able to create a man advantage, that means the enemy team, even while ahead, kind of struggle to make plays. So creating a man advantage in this case allows you to come back into the game. And one more thing that's with that is you just cannot die. If you die once, you lose your stacks on the Dark Seal and you're just basically fucked.
Yeah. So in this situation, you're really focusing on not dying as well, taking high percentage plays in a way. Like if you die, the game's just going to be so goddamn hard.
Yeah, exactly.
So this situation, you see them waste time top, you decide to commit to bot side. And again, you're looking for potential windows to roam. So again, you're trying to find that balance between shoving sideways and then moving.
Yeah, exactly.
Then we see a little bit of action here. Nunu ends up getting a little bit of damage, and then we actually land an E this time. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's
and then we end up getting that kill. Yeah, so it's pretty straightforward. I mean, you're making it look easy, but again, I think the biggest struggle for most people in this situation isn't the execution as much as the emotional stability, right? Because you're happy in a way to kind of lose the game playing good League of Legends. Like you're happy in a way, like if you do your job, stay healthy, and then you still lose, it's like, oh, it is what it is. I tried to stay healthy to the best of my ability, but it just wasn't enough.
Yeah.
And I can see how you're constantly doing that. This is that special ops mindset, right? You're trying to utilize the fog of war, jump over walls, use your ghillie suit to hide around corners, etc., and then get something done.
Yeah, exactly. In the meantime, we're still catching waves. Like whenever I get this,
catching waves,
I looked at the wave and see if it was possible to do so, if I had the time. And the wave is good when I come back. So
if that wave was actually closer to your tower, you probably wouldn't have went fish for that play. You would have went straight back to the side lane because otherwise you would have missed the wave, right? So your time that you're spending on the map looking for plays is completely dependent on the location of the wave in the side lane.
Yeah, I always look at the wave if it's a smart decision to go for the play. And right here as well, hovering out of vision.
Same thing, LeBlanc fundamental, hovering out of vision, coming in from the side. Unfortunately, this one doesn't end up working. But the premise is really good. I mean, you're fishing for a play. This one, unfortunately, you couldn't get your W off in time. You tried to stay to get the E2, but didn't end up working. But again, that's the sort of play you want to be looking for. And again, in accordance to your team's location, coming in from the side, special ops mindset, just doesn't work out this time.
And because I died, it's basically
end of review. That's it, yeah. And this, for a lot of people, this is, I mean, it's easy to say, look, you had 2 losing sides, but to be honest, you messed up a lot of this game.
Oh, yeah.
If you did a 3-stack, it would have been a different game, right?
This
You're
game
the one that
was fully on me.
Yeah, it was completely in your control.
Yep.
Just, again, small little decisions in the early game dug yourself a massive hole, and this just goes to show, LeBlanc, it's important to really understand the smaller details that are contributing to the game state.
Yep.
But I think it's actually a really good VOD showing how you're thinking from behind and how you can potentially get yourself back into a game.
In this review, we're looking at LeBlanc versus Ari. As you can see at the scoreboard, I'm 4-0-3. I'm popping off, really done well in lane, and I'm very far ahead. So we got this objective coming up, and in this case, I'm playing sort of front to back because we got a Jinx Lulu. We want to get those resets onto Jinx, so for me, playing the front to back in this case is completely fine. Main thing what we're looking at right here is me dying. This point right here. I got a big shutdown on my head. I greeted for the Lucian. I got one shot. I didn't expect it. And I gave so much gold to him and so much pressure that this is basically the way you lose games on LeBlanc, by dying on these useless deaths, even after you've won a team fight. So to show you what happens after this point is I can't really contest the Lucian anymore. I can't really do anything against him, even together with teams, and then a few more sloppy mistakes, and the game's just completely out of your control.
So you went from being 4-0, you're quite strong. Looks like you end up getting another one shot onto the RA at this stage. You're doing a pretty good job. This again, special ops mindset, go out of vision, fog of war, sweeping, trying to make picks in rotation, move straight into the jungle, trying to jockey for position.
Exactly. The Baron is up, so I want to be around the Baron, contest the vision, be where the action is going to happen.
Yep. So right now your mindset is you're trying to stay around the next objective, you're trying to fish around the sides, again, potentially answering side lanes if possible.
Yep.
End up fishing for another beautiful play with the Lee Sin, get an amazing pick onto the Viego, that should be a pretty free Baron.
Exactly. So we get the Baron, and what I like to do when we're doing Baron is I don't like to be in the pit. I'd rather like to be around the pit, looking for picks for when people walk in.
Yep.
But as we already can see, I didn't respect the enemy threat. I fucked up. I died.
And they must have had vision in that bush from the looks of things.
I didn't sweep myself.
You didn't sweep it. We didn't have sweeper, so you got to be super vigilant, right? And if you don't have sweeper, and then that's another shutdown onto the Lucian and another sloppy death.
Yep. And we don't get Baron this way.
Oh wow, that's actually massive.
Yeah.
And I think this is it goes to show like it's so easy to get complacent when you're ahead like this.
Oh
and
yeah.
Because in this situation you're actually not farming well. Like so you're not that far ahead. I mean you're strong, but you're actually not ahead in a way. It's weird.
Yeah. And this is a way you can delude yourself by thinking, oh, I'm popping off, I'm 6-2. But as we see for the past 4 minutes, I've basically catched one wave. And
right. So if you were to go back in time and go over all the, would you have played the side more actively? What would you have done differently?
So, I think I would, instead of walking top or around the Baron into the top, I maybe would have walked into the lane.
Yeah.
As for mid wave,
can we actually go back? Because I actually want to get your opinion on this. Because I think this is like I want to go back from when you initially walk into that topside jungle. So so you die. That's fine. You go straight back onto topside. Is there a particular reason here? So I think there's no reason to go anywhere but mid, right? Because top wave shoved out.
Yep. Exactly.
There's nothing else you to do. This makes the most sense. You get a really nice quick pick. Now at this stage, right? And then again, no point to answer top wave because it's not answered yet. So you do the sweep. This is completely fine. But at this stage, since you can't really kill the Lucian here, I mean, it's kind of hard because Janna's hovering. You can't one-shot the Viego. Would it not be better to just hover on top try? Or do you think it's better to kind of hover around mid because Lee Sin's in the area and you think you can get something done?
Well, if we're going to look at it in a theoretical way, I think going around top try is better because enemy team has a man disadvantage. So what's really the chance that they're going to contest? It shouldn't be that high. In this case, it kind of works out.
But it is solo queue, and Lee Sin was actually hovering. So you're kind of max. So it's actually not that bad, to be honest with you. No. Looking at it, I think it's actually completely fine for you to be there. It's more the afterwards here. It's more when you kind of sit in the front of that bush and it wasn't watered. It was more that, actually. So to be honest, it just so happened that this should have been a free Baron. It just, you messing up really messed it up for the team. Because, you sacrifice waves in a way. You're not getting top wave, but you should be getting Baron for it, but you don't get Baron for it in this situation. Which is interesting.
Exactly. And yes, we get a kill on Ahri and Lucian, and I feel good about myself because it's not that bad that I die. But it's terrible, actually. Especially because Baron on LeBlanc is actually super good. If you get Baron onto her, you can really exert that lane pressure, which you usually don't really have with your wave clear, and get man advantage fights.
So in this situation, what's your thought process? You coming out of base, the game's the same thing, trying to adapt to players happening around you,
Yep.
and trying to get
Exactly.
that, develop that, and play in accordance to the special ops mindset, using fog of war, coming in from sides.
Yeah. And basically in my head, I'm still thinking because it's during the game. I still think like, oh, I'm very ahead. I'm the man in this game. While I'm actually slowly starting to lose my grip onto it.
Right, fascinating. And that just is the case because you've died twice, you've given 2 shutdowns, and on top of
Yep.
that, you haven't really been farming that well.
No, I haven't been farming indeed. I finally start to get some CS.
Now, in this situation here,
Hmm.
how do you determine between hovering mid and then staying for this next top wave? Like, how do you, like, why do you stay for this next wave and not just automatically move mid?
So why that is because in my mind, a Lucian alone doesn't have too much threat onto a Jinx,
Right. Because they
especially
have a
with
limited
Lulu.
engage.
Yeah, exactly. It's very limited. It doesn't feel dangerous.
Mm,
So what I want to do is shove out this wave, make sure that I get the XP, get the gold, and then move towards mid lane and see if something's happening.
right.
In hindsight, I could have hovered mid lane a bit sooner to see what was going on.
Mm.
Um, we do get the counter kill onto Lucian though,
Hmm.
and I still get my wave.
And so
Is
you're
it good?
peeking Dragon in 20 seconds here. Your
Yep,
Jinx and Lulu are dead.
yep.
It's looking like a pretty big give angle, to be honest
Yeah,
with you.
this is for sure a give angle.
And there your team go. It's a hard fight.
I take a quick look at this again.
Yeah, so you come in from the side, you go for the WRW.
So I queued the minion.
Yeah,
So
if you
it
actually
was,
if you EQ'd
yeah,
Jana, she would have died there.
yeah, exactly. So
Another bit of a mechanical blunder there from you, Tim.
bit sloppy again, and the game is gonna start like
Yeah.
going downhill real fast. Especially right here, I try to steal the dragon. Always start with E,
Mm.
stealing a dragon because it gives vision. At least if I have no vision. If I
Yeah.
have vision, I go for a WQRE combo onto the objective. So I get a nice little pick onto Yana right here. Was this worth it? In hindsight, I don't
Probably
think
not,
so.
right? Yeah,
No,
use flash for this one, and you only scored a Jana kill, and your team was
yep,
half dead anyway, and there's no objectives really that you can get, so
exactly.
probably not worth it. I mean, you do get the stacks of the Dark Seal, but
I
probably
wouldn't say
not
it's
worth
worth it
it.
for my flash. No,
Mm,
because we don't really get anything by Yana
mm,
dying here.
yeah. Yeah, so given the pace of the game, I actually kind of disagree that you went for that extra top wave on top side. Looking at it again, like I
Hmm.
actually feel like it would have been better for you to hover, given like how aggressive this Lucian was as well. I
Yeah.
think that's a perfect example of not adapting to the game pace. To be honest with you, this is really
Yep.
good though. Getting to the objective nice and early, fog warring, excellent. Making sure we're looking to sweep. This is great. Coming in from the side. Straight onto the backline, Jana. Unfortunately, Mr. E, but good attempt. Get a chunk regardless. That's okay. And now you're turning this into a front to back.
Yep.
Riven's not even here. I don't even know you. I don't think you win front to back at this stage because Lucian and Jana are just stronger.
Yeah. We don't win a front to back at this
You
stage.
actually don't. So this was
So
actually not good. I mean, this was this your fault? Or was your team always going to go?
I think it's partially my fault. My mindset at this moment was, okay, I'm gonna one shot Janna and
Yeah,
we're going
yeah.
out. But I didn't communicate that to my team. They have no idea what I'm trying to do.
Hmm.
And if I fuck up my initial combo, initial one shot, it's just
Now you
super
have
hard to.
nothing, and now your team's
Yeah.
committed. Yeah, because they thought you were going in, but that you were just going
Yep.
for the one shot. So I mean, to be honest, that should be assumed information from the least in. To be honest with you, but
Hmm.
it's a bit unfortunate. But you should have definitely killed that Jana though, 110%.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. I did the wrong combo as
And
well.
this is a really good example, man. Because yeah, you're spot on.
Hmm.
A few little mistakes this game made Lucian get pretty out of control, and
Yep.
the game is just so unnecessarily hard.
Yeah.
Maybe not grouping that one time. misexecuting these fights, not having flash for this fight as well, and obviously those two big shutdowns. You've really made the game quite difficult.
Yeah, indeed. And looking back on this one, which combo should I have used? Because I think this is pretty important to look at. I think I should went for a W, Q, R, E. And the reason why I go for a QE here is because I'm not confident. I'm already
Right.
starting to feel the game get out of my
Fascinating.
control. So I choose the combo that's not good, and
Wait, so
it
what combo
managed to
did you
fuck up
do?
even worse. I I did the
You
W
did
Q E.
WQE.
Very strange.
That's such an ugly combo, that
It's
one.
super
You
ugly.
never do.
Yeah,
You very rarely do that one.
yeah. It's super ugly.
Ugh. Yuck.
And after here, yeah, it's bad.
So you think you should have done WQRE, is what you're saying?
Yeah. So
Or you could have done WEQR as well, right? Because she didn't know you were there. Like, do you
yeah,
think she would be
that's
able to
true.
react to like a WE? Like, I feel like she would know the WE would work, right?
So the problem with WE is that you don't get the two procs of your Q and RQ. Um, so if you land the E, you really gotta wait that additional second to get all the proc and all the damage. Yes, that would
Right,
be a
because you got
secure
to stay
combo.
for the sigil, both sigils to pop. You're saying,
Exactly. So we
right?
go for a W, Q,
Uh,
R, E to
and
get
it's
the initial
insta
procs,
pop.
and she's already dead.
Right, she just get one shot. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And right here as well, just absolutely shitting the bed with my combos,
Yeah.
losing Baron, and
Yeah.
this is basically game.
Too many missed E's.
Yep.
Legit, too many missed E's, and it makes such a big difference.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just done.
Hmm.
And that's end of review.
Yeah, it's end of review. Such a shame. It just
Hmm.
goes to show, guys, like just a few missed abilities, a few incorrect combos, not being in the right place at the right time, getting complacent, just
Yep.
like that.
And it looks like I'm still doing good, right? If you look in the after game,
Yeah,
I'm 7-2.
easily look at the chat, be like, "Oh my god,
Yeah.
guys, team diff," but no,
Team Death. Yeah.
your two deaths were late in the game and big bounties, and more impactful than early game deaths. To be
Yep.
honest with you, so
Exactly. Okay, so for the final review, we got a LeBlanc versus Cyan. And this is a very interesting review because we're going to look at translating leads, E accuracy, and also a bit of the special mindset. So we see my room page right here because I thought I was against the Jace. If I was against, if I knew if I was against Cyan, I wouldn't opt in for this room page because it's too focused on lane rather than scaling. I think I would have went first strike in this game in hindsight. So why is Cyan not too easy of a matchup? He has a lot of wave clear. He also is pretty much impossible for me to kill in the 1v1. So the main thing that I'm looking to do is play with my Viego again. LeBlanc Viego is a very nasty combo, and he's my my way of dealing with the Cyan, but also winning the game. So if we look at the first few waves, I wasn't really sure how I should have approached it during the game. So I wanted to get as much CS as possible, and I think a 2 or 3 stack wave into reset was the way I wanted to go for. I wanted to get some trades onto him. I wasn't sure how impactful my trades were going to be, so I still try to play around my electrocute and my W cooldown and see if I can get a lead onto the Sion.
I think Sion's really vulnerable to ganks.
Yep, yeah, that's his main weakness in this
Yeah.
lane. So even when we get a QW trade onto Sion, he just W's it and I do no damage.
Yeah, as you can see, those trades are pretty ineffective.
Yep.
So it looks like you're doing some form of a stack here. Trying to look for short trades again. Auto W auto.
Yep. And the wave is in a decently awkward position. It hasn't really crashed. It's still somewhat stacking.
It's a stack, yeah, still okay. I mean, I don't think they have much threat onto you with the Scion. Pretty sick Scion, doesn't seem overly threatening.
Yeah, not at all actually.
Yeah.
All right. So my mindset at this moment is Viego is starting to finish up his clear. I want to get the wave on my side. that's I'm looking at what my jungler is doing, so I want to give him the opportunity to at least play around me. If I keep my wave around this state, it's very hard for him to do anything with my gank setup.
And this is where the bounce starts.
Yep. So I'm not touching the wave.
Just last it.
See Viego's ganking bot, so I want to just keep it in the middle and make sure I hit the CS.
Sion ends up going for a failed TP. We cancel that very nicely.
Yep.
Which is great. Thinning the wave a little bit with the W.
Yep.
Now in this situation, because Viego is still bot, and it's obvious that Viego can't gank mid right now, it looks like you're thinning it. I mean, you're trying to keep it somewhat neutral.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was my idea behind it.
Yeah.
And right here, actually, Sion decides to shove. He's very exposed to ganks.
Pretty simple. WE behind, beautiful. Viego's able to follow up. Excellent.
Yep.
Easy.
So catch the wave.
And also you have TP into a high wave clear laner, so we're able to come back and collect the wave. And the great thing about that is, if you didn't have TP, it would actually be a little bit of a nightmare, especially into like the inting silence strategy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, into stuff like Sion, you gotta TP.
Yeah.
And
it's a lovely shove at this stage. And right now, you're already probably starting to think, okay, so again, combination of high value trades, and I'm assuming you're just trying to play around your jungler here, right?
Yep, I want to be there with skirmishes and be as efficient as possible. So right here, this play we've seen before.
Yep.
We're holding E twice.
Holding that E, beautiful. That's so clean.
Yep.
A lot of people would really rush the E there, but you hold the E. Excellent. Beautiful.
We're getting cancelled. This is completely fine for us, because if we look at mid lane still, we're not losing too much. Wave's not stacking into us, or big stacking into the enemies. Wave's kind of neutral, so we can make these plays around the side lane without feeling bad about it.
Yep. And this is just the pure chaos that you're looking for. Yep. Playing with your team, nice chaotic skirmishes, Wave's in an okay, somewhat okay position. Looks like the Wave's bouncing back into actually a really good position. And now you're well and truly snowballed.
Yep.
So this stage, what are we looking for? If you're in this situation, you're 3-0. Obviously, you're in a really good spot. Looks like top's struggling quite a bit. Bot lane seems to be doing really good. Are you starting to think about the side that you want to play towards, or are you still pretty much focused on the Viego?
So I'm currently shifting my focus into bot lane. Reasoning, it's Xerath Kai'Sa. And Xerath Kai'Sa just has no escape.
Vulnerable.
They're super vulnerable. It's unbelievable. So I also have a Thresh and a Varus, which means I got a lot of gank setup, a lot of opportunities. So what I try to do is shove out my wave and look for those opportunities on bot side.
Lovely. Here I don't think... Yeah, this is fine. It's kind of hard for you to really do anything in the isolated 1v1. As you can see, he's got that balmy cinder. He's so goddamn tanky.
So we're just stacking the wave, making sure it pushes, and whenever the wave pushes,
Hovering
first of all,
vision.
We hover bot. And one thing that I don't like to do, but that's personally, is move bot whenever I know I'm on a lot of vision and people can see me all the way. Because it's pretty easy to respond to ganks, and especially if you're not in a man advantage with those kind of ganks, it can be hard to really pull them off, because you're usually using your gap close and your damage to get to the enemies. And that means that if the skirmish breaks out, with enemies countering the gank, it can be very hard to win the skirmish. So right now I see there's a lot of heavy trading on bot lane, a lot of skirmishing. I hover again, Sion clears the wave in a second, and I catch it. Also here, I'm just trying to shove the wave, get myself some good quality tempo, be efficient. I return to mid lane.
Again, very poised, very controlled, not rushing anything, not ditching waves, focusing on your farm, using abilities, not being afraid to use abilities on the wave itself. And again, we saw the Lost Chapter prioritization over the Sorks because you're versing
Yep.
a high wave clear laner as well.
Exactly.
So the setup's all making sense, isn't it? The TP, the Lost Chapter, the focusing on the CS, the high value ability usage, it's all tying in together. And the focus on your complementing your jungler. And this is why, fundamentally, LeBlanc is just... It's more of a kind of like a Plat 2 and above champion. I mean, you can play LeBlanc below Platinum 2, but you really... The higher elo you play LeBlanc, the more success you're probably going to have.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's just the reality of the champion.
It is. Also because your team just understands way better what your champion does and how to play around it. You kind of need it as LeBlanc. So right here, we're helping Viego with the skirmish. We hold E after she dashes so we can land it, and we secure ourselves a very free herald and kill. So
in this situation, you've accepted reality that you're not really going to kill the Scion anymore. I mean, you're just going to kind of live, and you're just playing to complement whatever Viego does. You're going to be there.
Yep, exactly. And this is usually centered around objective. In these situations, I'm also calling for objectives because I want something to do, especially when I shove the wave.
Right.
And I know my strength in these situations. So right here, I try to shove the wave. And as you can see,
Punches
full damage
you pretty
combo.
well. Yeah, did nothing.
Absolutely zero. But it's fine because I'm looking to reset.
Got Ludens, TP, excellent. Yep. Viego looks like he's walking bot, so it's highly likely you're going to start to move on. You now got Sweeper as well. Do you have a rule for when you swap to Sweeper?
Yeah, personally, I like to do that when I get Ludens. Whenever I get the Ludens, I go for Sweeper. You can go way earlier, and it's going to be good. For example, with Lost Chapter Storks, going Sweeper is already is completely fine. I just like my yellow wards. So right here, there's not really action on the map, and I've got some prio, some tempo, so I decide to go for a plate in this case instead of going bot. Then I see skirmishes breaking out, and I'm just instantly rotating.
Double distortion, assassinate the Kai'Sa. Again, pretty simple. And this is like, it's so interesting like as well. Like, I think a lot of people watching this is like, is it really this simple? Because I remember when I watched your LeBlanc, you make it look so goddamn easy. And then when I play LeBlanc, I'm just like fumbling around the place. I'm like missing CS, like missing opportunity to back up my jungler, taking shitty quality resets, you know, missing chains. It's all like this basic stuff, right? It's all the basic stuff. And this is what we said, you know, we said LeBlanc really, you know, isn't the most complicated champion, right? Like, it's relatively straightforward to pick up. It's the consistency of doing the right things over and over again that makes it difficult.
Yeah, and it's super difficult to be able to do that consistent as well.
Yeah. So, this is looking pretty straightforward. So, at this point, now, again, same thing, shoving side. Moving again, complementing secondary win conditions. Obviously, Viego and the Varus, playing around this Varus and Thresh, right?
Yep, exactly.
Again, looking for high value abilities, both on the wave and ideally onto the Scion. In this situation, it looks like, are they collapsing? No, they're not collapsing. They just hover.
So it's not bad to play for yourself as well in this case. So whenever there's not something obvious happening and the trends of the game aren't too volatile, so a bit about bot lane, but not too, you can get yourself some nice resources and make sure you stay healthy. So you'll have that threat onto the enemies.
So when there is no obvious play to make with your team, and say you can't collapse onto your AD carry support for whatever reason, maybe the enemy have a lot of wave clear or whatever, they're behind, do you ever call for hover from your jungler? Like, you just play side call hover from your jungler?
I do sometimes call for it. It's really dependent on if I need it, rather, or if I think, okay, this is the way we win the game.
Right, yeah. Because I think there was an example we went over before when you're versing a Rise and things in was hovering you. But that was because you couldn't really make a play mid. I think mid tower was already gone. I think mid tower was already broken or something and you had to break top tier 1. I think at that point. Yeah, that makes sense. And this seems to be a key theme in this entire LeBlanc guide is the importance of communication with your jungler. And this is actually why, in general, by the way, LeBlanc is an extremely good competitive pick. Like, if you play Clash, like, and you can play LeBlanc well, I mean, it's pretty insane.
Yeah.
If you have good communication with your jungler. And
Exactly.
they understand how to play with LeBlanc.
Yep. So we're moving top right here. Right now, there's not really anything going on the map. Herald's moving up, and I know I want to be as efficient as possible. So I move top to catch the wave. I shove out another wave as soon as possible, and then I start to get into a good angle of the fight.
Again, special ops mindset, coming from the side, getting straight onto the back line. Again, making it look pretty textbook here, but it really is.
Yep.
Sweeping on the way through, coming in from the side, diving onto the back line.
Exactly. And what we've seen so far is that I've missed very little ease. And the reason is that because I'm so poised on my ease. I really take it slow. I'm feeling very confident. I know what my damage limits are, so I just wait with throwing my E because I'm confident.
And to add on to this, it seems like you've actively identified the amount of mobility that the enemy has. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
So Kindred is the only person basically on their team that has a dash.
Yeah.
So that's the only dash you really need to factor in. If Kindred uses dash, great, I can actually use my E. But Sion, immobile, Jace, relatively immobile, Kai'Sa, Xerath, all of them are immobile, so it's really easy to land E's as well. So I think one thing that you'll get as you get probably more LeBlanc Mastery, I'm assuming, you get better at understanding how easy it is or what you need to factor in when posturing for like a WE or an E onto someone as LeBlanc. What you need to be thinking about. What ability you need to be poisoning yourself or prepping or anticipating in your mind for.
Exactly.
And it looks like dragons are going to be the next objective. Was there anything else in this field that you wanted to look for?
Yep, I think that's a few more good things that happen. So right here as well, skirmishing, we just take it slow, especially with reset champions like Viego. Just take it slow. And
especially when you have a superior front to back.
Yep, exactly. So we got the next dragon coming up right here. And what I do is I stay here out of vision in my pink ward. I see enemy support oversteps. One-shot him, secure free dragon, we get soul, and that's basically end of review right here.
All right, so now for the community Q&A. The first one we have here is from Master Puya. First question, how to play the mid game if you effed up your early laning phase? And in brackets, how to come back if behind after laning phase, if it is even possible, and what is your new game plan? Tim, where do we start here?
So, good question. This is something that we've covered in how to play from behind.
Yep.
But to get this really clear, if you fucked up your early laning phase, you play towards your strengths and with your team. Because at that moment, you're not that good solo. Into certain champions, you are. But definitely together with your team, together with your gang setup, that's the way you can come back into the game.
So you're trying to fish for that. You're trying to fish for those man advantage plays.
Mm-hmm.
You may or may not have to sacrifice side lane waves at some point to potentially create a pick, but you're not going to do anything solo. I mean, again, I don't want to say that generally, but most of the time you're not going to be able to do anything solo, depending on how bad you mess up your early laning phase. But most of the time, you're probably going to also have to default to front to back. I'm assuming. Like, I think your assassination threat kind of goes to shit. You have very little threat onto the back line. So rather than the special ops mindset, it's probably going to be more front to back, playing around your jungler or secondary win condition.
Yeah.
So I think in terms of if even coming it back is possible, I think it really depends on, like, we actually did that VOD review right before where you were behind and then your team was behind and you kind of fish your plays. It can happen, but I think it really depends on the competence of your teammates and how far ahead they are. If you have kind of like LeBlanc's not a 1v9 champion. You're not
No,
gonna
no, not
be
at
able to
all.
make up for 3 losing lanes. You need someone else as a secondary win con. Second question here: how to manage an opponent equipped with a Banshee's Veil?
That's a very good question. It's pretty easy actually. You've got a lot of opportunities to proc that as LeBlanc. So especially when you go Ludens, you just W in from an angle where they can't really punish you from it, and you throw a Q onto the target or onto the target next to it, and either the Ludens or the Q itself will proc the Banshee, and 10 seconds later you can do it all over again, but
Yep.
then with genuine kill threat.
And it might mean that you can't really one-shot this person anymore, and they might not be
Hmm.
a person that you threaten in fights,
Hmm.
right? Especially when you're trying to do that special ops mindset.
Yep.
But I think it might be a sign that you might need to change targets, switch targets, and let someone else deal with that person as well. As
Yeah,
well, something to keep in mind.
that's true.
Um,
And one more
was there
thing
anything you
that I
want to
want
add
to
on
add on
that?
to this. Yeah, definitely. So if someone with a Banshees or Edge of Night is walking into you while you're trapping in a bush, what you do is you start with E into a QRW, because the E will proc the Banshees, and then the QRW will be the fast damage combo. Uh,
Right. So the E1 doesn't go through, but E2 will still go through, is what you're
no,
saying.
E just completely
Oh, the E just disappears.
E just disappears.
Oh,
Yep,
right. I didn't even know that.
exactly.
So
That's
you E to
that's the
proc
thing.
it, and then you QRW.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
QRW
Okay.
to get the most amount of damage.
Gotcha. Interesting.
Yep.
That's a good tidbit. And the third question here is best catch trap locations with LeBlanc.
So this is a very fun one.
Hmm.
The, the best trap location is the bush in the red side near to the base gate. So on the enemy
Ah,
team.
that one little cheesy one that's kind of
Yep.
like if they're entering their red side, their
Yep.
red buff area, through there, yeah,
Exactly.
and
That's my
so
absolute
they just
favorite one.
least expect they just least expect it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Especially when their vision line is still around the objective, and like you're already snuck in behind it. Like they're never gonna expect it, and always the squishies. The ADCs always walk to the red
getting red
buff.
buff.
They always want the red buff. They always die.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So
I
that's
think
my
as well. One thing
absolute
I
favorite
noticed
one.
you do, a big one I think you do, is also that one. Like you shove. Like I've seen you a lot of the time. Um, so say we're in mid game, and then
Hmm.
the enemy wants to catch side waves. What you do, that brush. Say you're on blue side, and then you're now top. You're in top lane, right? The map's opened up, and
Hmm.
then the enemy say rise is going to catch top wave. You go into that kind of that bush near Crux,
Yeah.
that little bush,
Yep.
whatever I don't know what the hell that one's called, but that little bush, I feel like that's also a really good brush because a lot of people expect, they can automatically be on the wave, they wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
But I've seen you kind of just skip through, maybe sweep on the way through the try, or just W over the wall, whatever. You get to that location, they're on the way to lane to catch a CS, or you catch them on Krogs, boom, one shot. I feel like that's
Yeah.
also a pretty good one.
Exactly. And the main thing with these bushes as well is don't really use the same bush after each other. So don't use the same bush twice because they will expect it, and
Yeah,
then you're gonna be trapped.
yeah, lovely. Moving on. Next
All
one
right.
here from Adam Wooten. How do you make up for her poor wave clear, and what are her level and items likes? Start with the first one.
So for wave clear, there's two things you can do. First of all, you can combine your trading abilities, like your W, together with the wave. So you hit end the wave and the target that you're trading on, and you can rush Eludence / rush the AP instead of your boots. So you have more damage, more power on the wave, and your wave clear is a little better to that. Also, don't be afraid to use your R for the wave clear. Just just use it. It's completely fine. It's on a very short cooldown. So if you need it, use your R.
Yep. And the second part of this one, what are her level and item spikes?
So there's a lot of level spikes. I think your level 2, 3 is insane. You can catch a lot of people off guard with that level spike. Also, your level 6, of course, you get a lot of damage. Your level 9, whenever you have your W maxed out. Level 11, because you especially level 11, because your R gets such an increase in damage that you have a lot of potential to actually one shot people at that point. Um, Also, level 13 and level 16 is a nice spike. 13 because you max out your Q, so also your burst damage with your Q is as high as possible. And level 16 because your R is just it's crazy how much
It's on
damage you
such a
get.
low cooldown as well.
Yep.
And what about item? I mean, I would say the biggest ones is what? Sorks.
Sorks.
Sorks is a big one.
Yep.
Sorks Lost Chapter.
Yep.
Sorks plus
Ludens.
Mythic. Yeah,
Yep.
Ludens is a massive one. And what would you say after that? Like, after you get your Sorks and your Ludens...
I think it's mostly full item spikes.
Right,
After
yeah,
that,
that's what I think as well. I feel like LeBlanc is kind of underwhelming in terms of components.
Yep.
In my opinion. Like, I feel like
Actually,
she spikes massively on Ludens, and then it's kind of like, and then you just kind of need your full items.
yep. It's the Zonias or the Shadow
The
Flame,
Shadow Flame, Death Cap, whatever.
Rabadons. Yep. Exactly.
Alright, moving on. Caballero Oscuro. Is it necessary to be Diamond Plus to profit from her, or is it possible to climb with LeBlanc in lower elos as a lower elo player? Also, is it worth the time then? I might start off with this one. I've seen a lot of coaching. I've done a lot of coaching with LeBlanc players, and I get this question a lot. And again, this is coming from just me watching a lot of LeBlanc players and coaching a lot of different LeBlanc players. I think Plat 2 and above is kind of like the break point in which LeBlanc starts to become very impactful. I'm not saying you can't climb with LeBlanc Platinum 4 to D4. It's just difficult. It's not easy. So I would say Plat 2, if you're Plat 2, you're going to get value from having her in your kit. If you're below Plat 2, if you could hold out until Plat 2, it would be nice. But if you love her, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter because the mastery you'll gain between Platinum 4 all the way to Plat 2 or, Gold 1 to Plat 2, is going to be immense anyway. Just a few things to keep in mind, though. A lot, we spoke a lot in this guide, Tim, about, communicating with your jungler and that sort of thing. I think if you're in Gold and low Plat, you got to take that not with a grain of salt, but you got to be quite careful in having the expectations that your junglers is going to listen to your calls. Because in my experience and from watching my coaching clients, sometimes junglers just aren't going to listen, and you're going to have to adapt, right? You're going to have to adapt. You have the perfect wave state, you ping for assistance, way in advance, the wave's bouncing out, and they don't come. There's not much you can do about that. You got to adapt. You got to move on. Then you got to let the wave crash, play off the bounce wave, get a good quality reset, things like that. So something to keep in mind. So is it worth the time? That's totally up to you, whether or not how much you love the champion.
Yep.
But like I said, if you can wait to P2, if you're on the fence, then that's probably my biggest advice.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're currently a LeBlanc player that is below Plat 2, the things that kind of change in your gameplay, what I would look for is there's some, of course, also some benefits of being below Plat 2.
That is true.
Because yes, it's harder to play with your jungler, and yes, your identity, especially in the lane and in skirmishes, with an additional teammate, is going to be way harder to actually practice and apply. But the special op mindsets works wonders in these ranks because
people get caught out way more.
Yeah, exactly.
And their laning is way weaker, by the way.
Yep.
So you could probably get a lot more solo kills, especially all the stuff where Tim was talking about, like flash E's.
Oh, they're not going
to expect it. They're just no way going to expect it. Like if you're not getting reliable solo kills in Platinum, low Plat especially, in Gold, as a LeBlanc, you're probably doing something wrong.
Yep.
Right? So that's something to note.
Yep.
Anything else you want to move on?
No, this is great.
All right, moving on. Razor 1. How do you deal with mages like Lux who outrange you and can control the wave better than you since they have better wave clear? Essentially, how do you play range v range matchups versus melee? It's easy as LeBlanc.
Exactly. So you make sure that the wave doesn't get too big at the beginning of the game. You match with autos and you take trades around your W cooldown. And the best thing would be if you make sure that your W also hits the minion wave. Like it's key in the mage v mage matchup that you hit the minion wave.
High value W's, yeah.
Yep, and hit the opponent.
I'd also say standing outside the wave is really important. Like if you're versing Lux, you don't want to be standing inside the wave, giving Lux high value E's. So standing outside the wave. And I think as well, Tim, again, love to get your thoughts on this, but I feel like when people verse these high wave clear champs like Lux, they kind of panic and they feel, oh my god, if I'm not getting something done in the early lane, like the game's kind of over.
Yeah.
But I think, again, we kind of tackled this misconception that LeBlanc, scales well into these sorts of champions, especially post 6. Like, if you could get to 6 with relatively good farm, you're probably going to be able to kill her. And even if you can't kill her, let's say she takes barrier, because you'll be taking TP in this matchup probably anyway, right?
Yeah,
Into
I'll
Lux.
take three.
You're just going to scale into mid game well anyway. Don't tunnel. Don't panic too much on. Oh my god, I can't kill Lux. She has barrier. You're going to probably have superior tempo because you're the one with TP. You're going to come back. You're going to have windows. You're going to. She's volatile to ganks. Like
Yep.
things will happen. I just feel like a lot of people panic and they miss too much CS and then they don't scale and then they say, oh, how do I beat Lux? But no, you just beat yourself. That's kind of
Yeah,
like what
basically.
I would suggest. Anyway.
When you're learning LeBlanc, there's a few things that is very key to picking her up. So the first thing is, of course, limit testing, figuring out the feel, your own feel with LeBlanc, and knowing what your limits are, so you can execute kills and really play towards LeBlanc's identity. Also, practice tool. Practice your combos in practice tool. All of them. With the R's, with the flashes. Just do it and figure out what feels good for you, so you can replicate this in your ranked games. And now the most important part is watch pro vaults. Personally, I've gotten very good at LeBlanc because I watched a lot of LeBlanc. Showmaker at Worlds was my main inspiration. Um, it really learns you how to replicate the feel of a champion. Like CSing, I got really good at that because of watching the VODs. Landing East, I got really good at that because of watching the VODs. So if you're watching pro VODs, look at how they manage their champion and how they have the feeling for this champion. Look at their wave clear patterns. Look at the way they throw their E. Analyze it. Look at their combos. And then there's also more people to watch than only Showmaker. Caps, very good LeBlanc. Also, Jovi, always someone to watch out for. Of course, you can watch me as well if you feel like it. But just watch good players play LeBlanc, and you'll get a lot of inspiration. A quick reflection on my own LeBlanc to end it off with. So right here we got the season 11, my stats from season 11 LeBlanc, season 12 LeBlanc. It's a bit different. So the main thing that we can see is that my win rate's way higher in season 11, and my CS is way higher in season 11. As we can see in the graphs on the right, and that's been something that I've not been doing that well this year, is I stopped CSing at a certain point. I fail to recognize when I can be efficient in comparison to when I have to be with my teammate, and it's very big because that CS make sure that you have less threat onto the enemies, and make sure that you're just less useful in general. So what I did in this year compared to when I was at my peak LeBlanc performance is that I was super efficient at that time. I knew exactly where I had to be, and I really won games throughout the fundamentals and being super efficient. In comparison to right now, my laning is quite similar, but I just failed to execute the mid to late game with stopping to CS. And if we look at Caps his LeBlanc and my LeBlanc, if you compare this, Caps was absolutely popping off on LeBlanc this year in solo queue. And if you compare his LeBlanc to my LeBlanc from season 11, it's pretty similar. Whilst if you compare it to my LeBlanc from season 12, it's completely different. What Caps does is he gets the minions advantage, he gets the gold advantage, and he even enlarges it in comparison to
That's
what I do right here.
insane. That was
Yeah,
actually, if you go to that graph, the gold diff, like that gold advantage on the right, look at
yeah, that's
Caps
actually
versus
crazy.
the average Master LeBlanc. Like, it's insane.
Yeah,
And the minion advantage as well. This goes to show how good of a farmer he is.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's absolutely unbelievable. He's super efficient, and what you can see in my own graphs, it's just decreasing at the moment.
Mm.
So if we look at this, and also from my own experience, the way I can improve my LeBlanc is currently by looking, okay, what are the decisions I'm making? Am I making the right decision? Am I at the uh, right moment in the game? Am I at the right place on the map? and how can I be more efficient? So that basically sums it up. This was the LeBlanc guide. I absolutely loved doing this together with Curtis. It took a lot of time, a lot of effort, but it was more than worth it in the end. And I want to thank you all for watching it. If you've made it all to the end, yeah, big props to you. It's probably been a
It's a
ride.
journey.
It's a journey, exactly. And if you got any questions or any feedback as well, um, uh, leave it in the comments, send me a message, and I'll be happy to hear it.
Lovely. Thanks, Tim, and thank you so much for helping me doing this. You've done an amazing job putting all together, all the clips, all the slides, and yeah. Again, comments. If you have any comments, question, guys, leave it below, and we'll try and get to as many as possible. Cheers.